Chapter 42:11. Looking at the other two men, one of them was also sent flying while the other was hit by Nyo Ji's great green bull divine fist and smashed into the ground not far from the God's circle. There were quite a number of people at the edge of the God's circle. When they saw the three people who were sent flying, their eyes flickered slightly. These people were all so powerful that they were heaven-defying. Just by standing there quietly, they were like heavenly gods. Even though Lin Ling and the others had exploded with powerful strength, it only made their eyes flicker slightly. They were not moved at all. Lei Gong's men. That's Lin Ling, right? Yes. The others are Qushin's men. They are Anyo, Cuehua, and Little South. Yes. Staring at Lin Ling and the others, these people also let out low voices. Although it was the first time they had seen each other, they were all God's men after all. Therefore, they could recognize each other immediately. Lin Ling, what do you mean by this? Yes. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. One of the men wearing heavy armor looked at Lin Ling indifferently and said. However, Lin Ling and the other three who were approaching them did not pay attention to the man at all. Instead, they looked at the crowd. They realized that there were about 100 people here. There were God's men, trial takers, and the 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Eternal martial god. Yes. Cuehua's eyes flickered slightly as she stared at a short and fat man. The man was wearing a gorgeous long robe and his body was fat. He did not look like an expert at all. Instead, he looked like a rich and powerful man. However, Cuehua knew that this person was one of the 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. In addition to the eternal martial god, there were 2 other martial gods. These 2 people were Lin Ling's acquaintances. One of them was martial god Rippling Wave, whom he had met not long ago in the demon forest. This person was the rising star who replaced martial god Qilin. The other person was an acquaintance. He was the unrestrained sword martial god. Moreover, the unrestrained sword martial god smiled at Lin Ling and Lin Ling returned the smile. Looking again, he was not familiar with the others. However, it seemed that each of the gods had a trial taker here. Of course, the Qushin had the most because Cuehua and the others. There were 3 of them. On the god of Thunder's side, there was only Sister Zhen. This surprised Lin Ling's sister Zhen was also a confidant of Lei Gong. However, there was another possibility, and that was that big sister Zhen had found out about the divine circle through other means, so she had come straight here. For a moment, Lin Ling did not know what the gods were thinking. As for the trial takers from the Titanic Crescent god side, Lin Ling could see that there were 3 of them because of the heavy armor they were wearing. It seems that the divine circles are also divided into different levels. The stronger the trial challengers, the more powerful the divine circles they go to. That's why those top trial challengers haven't appeared here. And with the limits of our strength, this divine circle is undoubtedly the best. That's right. Cuehua guessed and Lin Ling nodded in agreement. I asked you a question. Did you hear me? At this time, the man in heavy armor shouted again. Who do you think you are? Why should I answer you? Lin Ling stared at the man. Although he sensed the hostility of many people, he knew that they did not dare to act rashly because of Lei Gong's status. Who do I think I am? The man raised his eyebrows and did not say anything else. He stretched out one hand and the gray armor wriggled out. Rays of dazzling light flowed along his arm and formed a terrifying light wave in his palm that shot towards Lin Ling. If one looked closely, one would see that the divine energy had reached 100 rays. As a trial taker, the divine energy he possessed was not simple. However, he did not dare to kill Lin Ling in one move. He only wanted to teach him a lesson. Seeing this, Lin Ling's face turned cold. He mobilized all of his realm essence and stretched out both hands. Lanterns of the human monarch's flame appeared and were shot out by him. Boom! 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 The human monarch's flame and the dazzling light collided, forming a strong wind that turned the surrounding ruins' ancient walls into fine powder. However, the powerhouses present were still like immovable wisdom kings, standing there quietly without moving. Boom! With a final boom, the attacks from both sides completely disappeared. No one gained the upper hand. Ah! The man's eyes narrowed. He did not expect Lin Ling to be so powerful. This was because he had only heard of Lin Ling's name. In the trial-takers' circle, Lin Ling was not considered a strong opponent. Lin Ling was also surprised by the opponent's strength. This person had only used a casual move, but Lin Ling had to use the 3,000 great heavenly flames. If this person used his full strength, then even if Lin Ling used his full strength, he might not be able to gain the upper hand. However, compared to Lin Ling's surprise, the people present were even more shocked. Especially those from the Titanic Crescent God sect. Their eyes flashed. They did not expect that this unknown Lin Ling's strength could not be underestimated. Lin Ling apologized to De. Sister. At this time, Sister Zhen suddenly said. Why should I apologize? Lin Ling also looked at Sister Zhen and said. He had once ended things with Sister Zhen, and they had a grudge against each other. However, that grudge disappeared with the wind after that. Therefore, he did not expect that Sister Zhen would speak up for an outsider at this moment. If you don't apologize, then you have offended the Titanic Crescent God sect. Sister Zhen coldly said. On the surface, she and Lin Ling were at peace, but in reality, she had been unhappy with Lin Ling for a long time. It was just that she hid it well. What does it have to do with you whether I offend the Titanic Crescent God sect or not? Could it be that you think you are the Thunder God? Lin Ling retorted. Sister Zhen clenched her teeth, but she did not say anything else. She coldly said, You brought this trouble on yourself. When the time comes, you have to deal with it yourself. Let's see how you explain it to Lei Gong. Whether I explain it to Lei Gong or not is my business. You, just do your own thing. Meddling in other people's business will not end well. Sister Zhen's cold tone made Lin Ling no longer give her any face. He coldly snorted. Sister Zhen's face turned ugly, and she ignored Lin Ling. You are Lin Ling. When De was about to speak, another expert looked at Lin Ling. He was the eternal martial god, ranked 5th among the top 10 martial gods in the 9 prefectures. Yes, I am. Lin Ling also looked at him and calmly replied. You have courage. The eternal martial god smiled and did not say anything. However, his eyes flashed with a strange light. He did not know whether this person was a friend or a foe. If you have something to say, just say it. If not, don't disturb me. Chapter 42:12. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the corners of many people's mouths curled into a cold smile, and they all fell silent. It was obvious that they were not hostile to Lin Ling, but they did not put Lin Ling in their eyes. However, Lin Ling's background was strong, so they were a little afraid of him. In addition, Lin Ling had Suehua and the other two, who were not weak. If they attacked, they might not be able to gain the upper hand. Lin Ling. In the crowd, Longyang's eyes flickered as she stood in the crowd in an extremely low-key manner. Then, everyone withdrew their gazes and looked indifferently at the god ring in the distance. The god ring sat on the ground and was about 5 meters in size. Light shot up into the sky, and it was extremely mysterious. Everyone had been here for a long time, but they did not act rashly. This was because someone had tried to enter the god ring before, but the result was that he was destroyed by the god ring. Therefore, before they understood the characteristics of the god ring, they did not dare to act rashly. Logically speaking, the gods should not have lied to us. But why did that person die? Someone asked doubtfully. I think that person's divine fetus was an acquired divine fetus, so he was not recognized by the god ring and died. Someone else said. It sounds like that is indeed a possibility, because the gods said that this divine ring is used to seal gods. If it was a god back then it can restore a portion of the god's power. If it wasn't a god back then it can stimulate the divine embryo through the divine ring and raise the divine embryo's level. And the divine embryo that is stimulated is acquired. The rank of the divine fetus is too weak. Only the Xiantian realm can do it. The ancient martial god rubbed his chin and said, however, it is still a guess. Why don't you let the one with the innate divine fetus try? Lin Ling, the four of you are the last to arrive. Let one of you try. De suddenly looked at Lin Ling and said. He was obviously still holding a grudge about what had happened before. Scram! Scram! Unfortunately, Lin Ling did not give him any face and directly told him to scram. However, Cuehua and the others weren't the type to be bullied. She sneered and said, De, your titanic crescent god has more people, you should send someone to try. And if I don't? De immediately looked at Cuehua and the others with contempt. Then let's fight. Otherwise, cut the crap. Nyogu also shouted loudly, if you have the ability, we don't want the divine pendant anymore, let's fight to the death. Do you dare? Hearing this, De suddenly clenched his fists, but he suddenly thought of something and endured it. He obviously couldn't give up on the divine circle. Of course, the others wouldn't agree either. De, don't talk nonsense. If you keep delaying like this, I don't know how long it will take. In my opinion, you'd better let them come out. Although he wasn't happy with Lin Ling's arrogance, it was obvious that he had more important matters to attend to. De Shiba, you go. Hearing this, De finally compromised. Although he didn't want to let his own people go out to test, he knew that no one wanted to waste time unless he dared to go against everyone's will. Yes. The expert called De Shiba didn't hesitate. Like a black giant, he walked step by step towards the divine circle. At this moment, everyone narrowed their eyes, wanting to know the result. After De Shiba entered, he suddenly disappeared without a trace. What's going on? This caused everyone's eyes to narrow. This was because there were people who went to test it before, but they didn't disappear. Instead, they turned into powder. Looks like it worked. Sword God of Freedom suddenly thought of something and then smiled excitedly. Those who don't have an innate godly embryo can't enter the divine circle and can only turn into dust. On the other hand, those who have an innate godly embryo will definitely go to another secret realm after entering the divine circle and then become gods. The ancient martial god also guessed as he laughed. Sure enough, after waiting for half an hour, the divine circle began to condense into a human shape. Then, the cold De Shiba walked back. However, his face was filled with excitement. With each step he took, it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. This caused everyone to feel that De Shiba's strength had greatly increased. A second-grade innate godly embryo. Someone exclaimed in shock. A second-grade innate godly embryo was extremely rare even among the gods nowadays. Who would have thought that a 10th-grade divine paladin would be able to soar in the divine circle and surpass many experts? The investiture of the gods in the 9 prefectures was truly extraordinary. In just an instant, many people's eyes were filled with burning light. They couldn't wait to rush into the divine circle and be reborn. I'll do it. At this moment, an unknown expert took the lead and shot over. You're courting death. The others immediately shouted angrily. They didn't know who that expert came with, but he didn't follow the rules. However, as soon as this person rushed into the divine circle, his body became illusory and then turned into powder. Then, he drifted away with the wind. What's going on? That person has an innate godly embryo. This scene also caused the excited people to be shocked. Their thoughts of becoming stronger suddenly became cautious. Because according to their guesses, only acquired godly embryos were dangerous. Could it be that this divine circle also depends on luck to increase one's talent? For a moment, many people frowned. Fortune comes from danger. I'll do it. Of course, in order to become stronger, many people were willing to risk it. Then, he shot into the divine circle. Next, he disappeared into the divine circle. When he reappeared, his talent had also increased by 1 grade. I did it. That person was undoubtedly very excited. After he opened the door, the others no longer hesitated and entered the divine circle. However, they didn't encounter any danger. Instead, their talent had greatly increased. This caused everyone to be completely at ease. Then, they all smiled in faith. Because 1 grade increase shouldn't be underestimated. For martial artists, a grade increase in godly embryo meant that one's potential had doubled. For example, if the power of a god was born, it would be stronger than before. The boundary essence unleashed by his innate talent was also twice as powerful as his usual attacks. Most importantly, with an increase in potential, the chances of becoming a god would also greatly increase. One should know that in the current JoJo, there were very few martial artists who could successfully break through to the martial god realm. There was always a great calamity in the unseen world that stopped them. After experiencing many breakthroughs, many martial artists at the peak of the martial god realm knew that talent played an 80% role in entering the god realm. Therefore, many powerful martial artists wanted to increase their talent, break through the human limit, and completely become a god. Taking a step back, even if they couldn't completely become a god, their strength would still increase by leaps and bounds. Back when Lin Ling fought with Han Xie, the latter was a 2nd-grade godly embryo. Lin Ling had to use his full strength to defeat him. From this, one could see the benefits of a 2nd-grade godly embryo. Chapter 42:13. As far as she knew, it was difficult for a martial god to increase one's boundary essence or talent. However, there was such a cheating tool in the world that could increase one's talent in the blink of an eye. This divine ring is stronger than the spirit nation's cultivation. However, Lin Ling shook his head. In the spirit nation's cultivation, one's talent could only be of one attribute. This attribute was also related to the spirit nation. However, the divine ring could increase any attribute. While they were talking, a person walked out of the divine ring all of a sudden. Then, a powerful aura burst out. Divine aura. This divine aura was different from the divine aura that Lin Ling and the others had comprehended. It had a different kind of power, but it was incomparably powerful. It's the light of a lower god. Someone exclaimed in shock. The person who walked out of the divine ring was surrounded by a ring of divine light. Not only did it provide a powerful defense, but it also gave birth to a majestic aura that could crush all divine embryos. Lower god. This meant that this person had returned to the divine position. Moreover, the people noticed that this person's talent had increased by quite a lot. It was at least a 2nd-grade divine embryo. In addition to his original talent, his talent had reached the 3rd-grade divine embryo. That person looked up to the sky and laughed. He crazily activated his boundary essence, causing the ground to shake and the ruins around him to be eroded. This person was one of the top 10 martial gods in JoJo, the eternal martial god. I didn't expect this person to be a god in the past. Now that he has become a god, he has returned to the divine position. Many people knew why the eternal martial god had brought about such a change. Don't be impatient. There must be many gods among you. They will return to their divine positions soon. The eternal martial god withdrew his aura and walked over step by step. Looking at his smiling face, the people were incomparably jealous. Let me try. At this moment, another expert shot into the divine ring. This time, it was the unrestrained sword martial god. Everyone held their breaths, waiting for the unrestrained sword martial god's transformation. Although the eternal martial god seemed to be magnanimous, his eyes were filled with jealousy. Obviously, he did not think that the unrestrained sword martial god was the reincarnation of a god. Boom! After a while, when the unrestrained sword martial god's body appeared in the divine ring again, a powerful divine light also spread out. Another god had returned to the throne. Let me try. Mirage Wave martial god immediately charged over when he saw that both of the 10 great martial gods had obtained good gains. After a while, his body didn't emit any godly light. His talent only increased by 1 level. Damn it! The rippling Mirage martial god was infuriated when he walked out. Upon seeing this, the unrestrained sword martial god and the ancient martial god burst into laughter. Their laughter was filled with schadenfreude. Whoosh! Whoosh! After that, the others also rushed into the divine ring. When it was De's turn, everyone was looking forward to it because De was a trial tester. Bastard! However, after he came out, there was no divine light on his body. It was obvious that he had only increased his talent. Back then, he was not considered a deity. One had to know that if a deity was reincarnated, there would be many benefits. They might be able to regain their memories and learn the cultivation method they had learned in the past. It was even possible for them to completely return to being a deity. Not being a god meant that his potential was limited. Then, Sister Jeanne couldn't hold back the anticipation in her heart and also gave it a try. However, the result was that she wasn't a god either. Without a doubt, she was so angry that her face was twisted. Among all the trial testers, Longyang's improvement was the most powerful. Her body had produced 2 divine lights. Could it be that she is the reincarnation of an intermediate deity? This time, everyone was silent. Moreover, because of the divine lights, Longyang's divine fetus had increased by 3 grades. After Longyang walked out of the divine ring, her face was filled with unconcealable joy. However, when she sensed the strange gazes from all around her, her expression changed slightly. Naturally, she could sense the hostile gazes from the crowd. After all, no one wanted others to be above them. If they had the chance, they would rather kill them. Of course, if only one person had such thoughts, that person wouldn't dare to act rashly. However, many people had such thoughts. Let's leave first. Longyang's eyes flashed. Without saying anything, she turned around and left. However, someone stopped her. Longyang, after you entered the divine ring, what did you see? The person who spoke was De. Obviously, he wanted to harm Longyang and was just looking for an excuse to do so. It's none of your business. However, at this moment, a cold voice rang out. De turned his head and saw that the person who spoke was Lin Ling. What she saw in the divine ring is her business. Don't you think you're being too long-winded by asking her that? Lin Ling looked directly at De and said mercilessly. Then, he looked at Longyang and said, Longyang, come to my side. Although he didn't get along with Longyang, it was obvious that he didn't get along with De even more. Okay. Longyang was eager to find a backer, so she immediately went to Lin Ling's side. Lin Ling, do you have to offend me? Seeing Longyang run toward Lin Ling, De felt that he couldn't put down his pride. He stared coldly at Lin Ling. Lin Ling wasn't afraid of him at all and continued to stare at him. Humph. However, De endured it in the end because he felt that Lin Ling was truly not afraid of him. He was even more unscrupulous than Suehua and the others. Lin Ling, I'll try. Little South smiled and said to Lin Ling. She also knew that Lin Ling was now considered the leader among them. Go. Lin Ling immediately nodded. Then, he watched as Little South ran toward the divine ring. However, at this moment, another person ran toward the divine ring. This person was unfamiliar and wasn't one of the 4 great deities. He seemed to have followed the 10 martial gods of Jojo. Get lost. That person had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Seeing that someone was fighting with him, he immediately let out an angry roar. After that, powerful realm energy appeared on his palm, and he slapped it toward Xiao Nan. However, Xiao Nan wasn't weak at all. She pointed out with her finger, and a large amount of divine energy surged out and destroyed that person's palm strike. Moreover, it even transformed into an arrow that shot towards that person, causing him to let out a muffled groan and take over a dozen steps back. How dare you touch my people? Seeing this, a furious voice came from a city wall in the distance. Then, he immediately pounced toward Little South. Upon closer inspection, he was actually martial god Ripple Mirage. His strength wasn't weak at all. He was even stronger than Little South. He grabbed out with his palm and circles of blue light waves appeared. Moreover, there were a large number of illusions within the light waves. There were demons, ghosts, the sun, the moon, and stars. Little South, go in. Don't pay attention to him. At this moment, Lin Ling, who had been paying attention to his surroundings, made a sound. Then, he held his sword and slashed at the light wave in midair. Brother Anyo also understood and threw a punch in front of him. Crash! The terrifying sound wave fist and Lin Ling's sword collided with martial god Ripple Mirage's attack. Chapter 42:14. When Little South saw this, he immediately turned a blind eye and entered the divine circle. He had incomparable trust in Lin Ling and then disappeared without a trace. Lin Ling. Seeing that his attack was blocked, martial god Ripple Mirage was undoubtedly angered to the point that his face turned green. He had yet to take revenge for last time, and now Lin Ling had come to provoke him again. Little South went in first. You guys came later. It's fine if you came later, but you even dared to attack Little South. You guys broke the rules first. Lin Ling floated in the air and looked at martial god Ripple Mirage fearlessly. The surrounding people gasped. They never imagined that Lin Ling would be so arrogant. After provoking DE, he even dared to provoke martial god Ripple Mirage. How could they know that Lin Ling and martial god Ripple Mirage already had enmity? Even if Lin Ling didn't attack him, martial god Ripple Mirage would attack Lin Ling sooner or later. So, why should Lin Ling give him face? This divine circle is shared. Could it be that you think everyone is an idiot? Martial god Ripple Mirage suddenly looked at everyone and said indifferently. He wasn't stupid. He knew that Lin Ling had a few experts on his side. If they joined forces, he wouldn't be a match at all. So, he thought of a way to make Lin Ling infuriate everyone. In fact, a third of the powerhouses present did not see eye to eye with Lin Ling. Of course, there was also a portion of people who remained neutral. However, his wishful thinking was obviously going to fail. Because the unrestrained sword martial god, who had been quietly observing the surroundings, said with a smile at this moment, Martial god Ripple Mirage, you're one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Although Lin Ling and the others are trial takers, they're also rising stars. Could it be that letting them win would make you lose a piece of flesh? These words also caused the restless people to stop casually attacking for a moment. They obviously noticed that the unrestrained sword martial god was standing on Lin Ling's side. Rumble. At this moment, Little South, who had disappeared in the divine circle, reappeared. Then, a powerful divine light descended. It was actually the same as Longyang's divine light. Chi. Countless people gasped, and their eyes were filled with envy. Huh, brother Lin Ling, I broke through. After Little South walked out, he immediately shouted in surprise. Lin Ling and the others were also happy for Little South. Then Lin Ling said to Tsuehua, Sister Tsuehua, you can go now. All right. Tsuehua was not pretentious, because she knew that no matter what trouble she encountered, Lin Ling would lead the others to protect her. Then, Suihua entered the divine circle. She appeared again under the expectant gazes of countless people. At the same time, her body was filled with divine light. Although it was not comparable to Little South and Longnyang, it was the same as the ancient martial god and the others. Next up was Niu Gu. However, to everyone's disappointment, he was not the reincarnation of a god. He had merely improved his talent. "Brother Lin Ling, it's your turn." Then, Little South and the others looked at Lin Ling and said. Even Longnyang had a look of anticipation because she had returned to the position of a medium god. She estimated that Lin Ling was definitely not much weaker than her. Lin Ling nodded and released the giant ghost. He immediately walked towards the divine circle. In fact, Lin Ling was not too sure whether he was the reincarnation of a god or not. Lin Ling. Seeing Lin Ling walk towards the divine circle, many people's eyes flickered. Should we stop him? Now, Lin Ling seems to be the leader of Little South's side. If we stop him, with Little South's intelligence, I'm afraid they won't know what to do. A voice transmission quietly reached Di's ears. Hearing this, Di's eyes flickered. Although Lin Ling's strength was not as strong as Cuehua and the others, his boldness and knowledge surpassed these people. He could take charge of an area alone and dared to do what these people did not dare to do. Therefore, he was the leader of Cuehua and the others. If De stopped Lin Ling, as long as he could injure Lin Ling, then Cuehua and the others would not be able to cause any trouble. Wait, this Lin Ling is cunning. He probably hid his strength when he fought with me earlier. So, after he enters the divine circle, we'll find a way to attack the divine circle. After pondering for a while, De said calmly. That's a good plan. The people around him immediately nodded secretly. In fact, it was not only him. Even the other experts were getting restless. Among them was martial god Ripple Mirage. However, when he saw that the others were keeping silent, he also decided to wait and see. With no one stopping him, Lin Ling successfully entered the divine circle. As soon as he stepped in, a strange feeling enveloped him. Rumble. Then, the 5-meter-wide divine circle began to shake. What's going on? This caused Lin Ling's eyes to narrow. When he was about to do something, he suddenly felt a huge suction force enveloping his body and pulling him in a certain direction. Most importantly, this suction force did not come from one direction but from countless directions. This caused his body to become illusory and gradually turned into fine powder, dissipating in the divine circle. What? Such a strange scene undoubtedly shocked everyone. This was because they had thought that Lin Ling might have a divine fetus that had advanced by 1 grade. They had also thought that Lin Ling would return to the deity position. They had also thought that Lin Ling would be a medium deity. However, they had never thought that Lin Ling would turn into nothingness. This meant that Lin Ling was the same as the 2 people who had died earlier. He was not recognized by the divine circle. How is this possible? While everyone was still in shock, a loud roar suddenly exploded. The person who had shouted was the unrestrained sword martial god. This was because he was very familiar with Lin Ling. Lin Ling had 2 divine fetus and they were both innate deities. Therefore, it was impossible for the divine circle to destroy him. This was too strange. Haha, he died just like that. You really made me worry for nothing. Compared to the shock of the unrestrained sword martial god, the wave martial god was laughing excitedly. Looking at De again, he was already secretly preparing a powerful attack. He had originally wanted to attack the divine circle, but now, he had also restrained that attack because he didn't need to attack. Lin Ling was already dead. Ha ha ha. He could not help but laugh. This Lin Ling, who was not afraid of him, turned out to be even more useless than him. He's dead. No, no, no. How can he die here? He should be the reincarnation of a god. He must be the reincarnation of a god. Long Yang kept shaking her head at this moment. She had been competing with Lin Ling all her life. However, she had been defeated by Lin Ling time and time again. Therefore, she was sure that Lin Ling was not weaker than her. However, the man who had created miracles time and time again had fallen. How could anyone believe this? Lin Ling, how can you die here? Then, Long Yang crazily rushed towards the divine circle. However, as soon as she got close, a huge pressure hit her and sent her flying. Obviously, those who had experienced the divine circle could no longer get close to it. Long Yang, who had fallen in the distance, screamed in pain again, Lin Ling, you can't die yet. You can only die in my hands. How can you die here? Get back here quickly. Chapter 42:15. No one could see that at this moment, within the divine light that soared into the sky, a large amount of dust light was floating upwards. It actually passed through the thick underground rocks and then disappeared into the continent. These lights seemed to have received a call and condensed in a white space somewhere, gradually transforming into a human figure. And he was Lin Ling. Lin Ling, who had transformed back into a human, stood above the white clouds. His eyes were a little blank, but when all his memories returned, he gradually woke up. Why am I here? Lin Ling frowned. He sensed his entire body, but he did not find anything strange. It was exactly the same as before. Looking ahead again, within the white clouds, there was a colorful circle of light sitting on the ground. This circle of light was extremely grand and sacred. Within the colorful lights that soared into the sky, there were actually ancient runes floating upwards. Another divine circle. Staring at the circle of light, Lin Ling's heart trembled. Could it be that this was the divine circle that belonged to him? Licking his lips, Lin Ling did not hesitate and walked towards the ancient divine circle step by step. Dong! Following Lin Ling's footsteps, a loud bell sound rang out. Although it was deafening, when it fell into Lin Ling's heart, it made Lin Ling feel incomparably comfortable. All these years, Lin Ling had been constantly cultivating, and his strength was also incomparably powerful. However, because of his 6 dantians, his foundation was not very solid. And this kind of solidity was not reflected in his physical body and soul force, but in his comprehension of the various great talents. This was a flaw that Lin Ling himself knew. And now, under the ancient bell sound, the strands of mysterious power that were restless in his 6 dantians also calmed down at this moment. Like 6 naughty children, they were now well-behaved and quietly followed Lin Ling. Soul force, physical strength, and boundary essence are all slowly rising. This feeling. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He raised his head and looked at the divine circle that was right in front of him. In the end, he stepped into it. Boundless divine light enveloped Lin Ling's body, and an old voice rang out at the same time, "You are not a god. You cannot be conferred the title of god, you cannot return to your position." Upon hearing this, Lin Ling's pupils constricted. He didn't know who the voice came from, but he was surprised that he wasn't a god in his previous life. But you are an existence that surpasses the gods. While Lin Ling was still in shock, the elderly voice sounded out once again. Next, Lin Ling felt the world spin, as if he had entered a powerful whirlpool. This vortex gave Lin Ling the feeling that it was a space-time tunnel. Lin Ling opened his eyes and looked into the huge vortex. Scenes were spinning and being elongated, eventually turning into afterimages. Among these scenes, there was an ancient land, a blue sky, a war between gods, and the ancient primordial era. At the same time, an unknown voice rang out in Lin Ling's ears. This voice was very peaceful, and it enveloped Lin Ling's body, making Lin Ling feel warm all over. Could this be the so-called conferment of God? Previously, when Long Yang and the others entered the divine circle and came out, their talents had greatly increased. Perhaps they had also experienced such a scene. Lin Ling simply allowed the changes to his surroundings. He closed his eyes slightly, and like an old monk in meditation, he remained motionless. Looking from afar, one could see a huge spiral downward spacetime tunnel. It was crazily spinning, and within it, a man sat cross-legged, like the immovable Wisdom King. As time passed, the spacetime tunnel seemed to bring Lin Ling back to his previous life, back to his most primitive identity. All the treasures on his body spilled out, and even his clothes turned into nothingness. Under the grinding of time, those treasures gradually began to be eroded, but they turned into a large amount of light that enveloped Lin Ling's body. This also caused Lin Ling's body to emit a multicolored light, which was extremely gorgeous. Among them, the indigo spiritual flower entered Lin Ling's body, and all the divine spring turned into a dense mist that enveloped Lin Ling. And because there was too much divine spring, it caused a thick eggshell to appear outside Lin Ling's body. And within the eggshell formed by all kinds of energy, Lin Ling could feel that the 6 divine embryos were madly improving. The realm-swallowing beast, the double dragon innate talent, and the devil jellyfish had all stepped into the 3rd grade of Xiantian realm. This caused Lin Ling's eyelashes to twitch. Clearly, he was very shocked. Of course, the most frightening ones were the Thunderlock True Body and the Human King's Flame. These 2 innate talents had not only broken through the 3rd grade, but were also rushing towards the 4th and 5th grade. The limit of these 2 innate talents was the mid-god realm. Obviously, they were much more powerful than the realm-swallowing beast's innate talents, so the curve of improvement was much greater. Just like that, quietly watching the 6 divine embryos improve, Lin Ling seemed to have entered a deep sleep. Even he did not notice that at this moment, under the blue sky, the sea was tranquil, and the tranquil islands were sitting on the sea like pearls. Rumble. Suddenly, the void cracked open, revealing a pitch-black void. Then, a gray eggshell fell from the void and smashed onto the island. Rumble. When the eggshell fell, the entire sea erupted with fierce waves that stretched to the horizon. The power did not stop, and it rushed into the sky, causing the whole world to shake. Those islands had also turned into ashes, leaving only a small mountain standing in the middle of the sea. On top of that mountain, the gray eggshell stood there. Almost at the same time, from the pitch-black void in the sky, a voice that seemed to have materialized floated down. In ancient times, the 4 extremes were destroyed, the 9 provinces were broken, the sky was not covered, and the sea was not covered. The fire was not extinguished, and the water was vast and endless. Ferocious beasts devoured the people, and the sea birds seized the old and the weak. Thus, Nuwa refined the 5-colored stone to mend the sky. The voice fell on the eggshell, and it immediately turned into ancient runes that were extremely dazzling. Then, the terrifying void in the sky began to shrink, and only a pair of eyes calmly looked at the sea below. Back then, the 5-colored stone still had some power that had not dissipated. Now, it's yours. Who exactly are you? Time will prove everything. The ancient runes wrapped around the eggshell, and Lin Ling, who was in the eggshell, could clearly feel that a power had been born in his body. It was like a seed that was constantly sprouting. However, this power was currently a little weak, so the other 6 Dantians were resisting and suppressing it at the same time. And when the power was gradually suppressed to the point of almost disappearing, suddenly, a fierce power rushed into the eggshell outside. It was like a giant hand that tore open a Dantian in Lin Ling's Dantian. The 7th Dantian was born. Chapter 42:16. As for the eggshell outside, because Lin Ling had absorbed a large amount of energy, the originally dazzling eggshell had quietly become darker. From afar, the eggshell no longer shone with divine light. Instead, it looked like a very ordinary rock. The birth of the 7th Dantian also allowed the weak energy to find a place to settle down. It immediately swam into the Dantian, then took root and grew rapidly. Upon closer inspection, there was an additional seed in the 7th Dantian. This seed also looked like a fruit, with complex patterns on its surface. This was because this was Bodhi. As Bodhi continued to germinate and grow green leaves, its aura also became more ferocious, like a green vajra. Boom, boom, boom. Lin Ling felt the changes in his body and was shocked. The seventh Dantian was born just like that, and there was an additional talent. It was Bodhi's talent. This was the power of the Buddha God. Could it be that this was brought about by cultivating the Bodhi testimony divine art? Although he did not know why it had become like this, Lin Ling was still overjoyed. He had a feeling that someone was helping him. Moreover, that person was helping him to see where Lin Ling's limit was. As for who this person was, Lin Ling guessed that it was Patriarch Bodhi. He also guessed that it was the blue-robed youth who had brought him to the martial god realm. He also guessed that it was an ancient great god. Overall, Lin Ling was not at a disadvantage. Time passed by just like that. The sea gradually calmed down. As time passed, the island grew out from the depths of the sea, causing the nearby area to gradually become lively. Countless trees were uprooted from the ground, the grasslands were dense, and the mountains reached into the clouds. This island was like a divine island, as ethereal as dust. As time passed, unknown wild beasts were also born. They ran around the flowers, and it was a happy and harmonious scene. However, there was a forbidden area on the island that no living creature dared to approach. That was also the highest point of the island. This was because there was a mountain peak there. On the peak of the mountain, there was an oval-shaped stone more than 2 meters in size. This stone was exposed to the sun and rain, and it seemed to absorb the essence of heaven and earth every day. Therefore, at every moment, the stone would emit an invisible aura that prevented anything from approaching. This aura was very majestic, and it was constantly growing stronger. It seemed to be soul force. According to the kingdom's records, there was a miracle here 3,000 years ago. We've been searching for it for so long, so it should be around here. On this day, several figures appeared in the vast sea. They floated in the sky and calmly looked into the distance. The sea breeze blew in from all directions, but their robes didn't move in the slightest, as if they were as hard as iron. From this, it could be seen how strong they were. "Master, there's an island there." All of a sudden, a young man pointed to the front and said with an extremely excited look on his face. "Did you find it?" An old man beside him narrowed his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. "I don't know what this miracle is. I hope it's the way out of Eternal Kingdom." The old man muttered to himself as he flew toward the island with his companions. Their speed was so fast that they could travel 10,000 worlds in a single breath. If this kind of speed was placed in the 9 regions, it would definitely be an existence that could not be underestimated. When they arrived at the island, they looked at the island in shock. The scene of vitality here made them feel incredulous. "Master, there's a huge divine stone there." When everyone's gaze swept over, one of the women suddenly screamed and pointed to the mountain peak in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and stared at the mountain peak in the sky. The mountain peak was hidden in the misty clouds, and only half of the peak could be seen. If one looked carefully, one could see that there was a piece of flat land that was more than 10 meters wide on the mountain peak. On top of it stood a divine stone. The divine stone looked ordinary on the surface, but upon closer inspection, one could sense a mysterious aura. A power quietly spread out from it. "Let's go." The old man was inexplicably excited. Could it be some kind of treasure? The few of them flew toward the mountain peak in the distance and landed on it. They looked around and found that the divine stone was in a good position. It could overlook the entire sea as if it was overlooking the world. There was green grass beside the divine stone, and from time to time, skylarks would fly down. Everything formed an extremely mysterious scene. "This stone, I'm afraid it's not ordinary." The old man said word by word. "Master, I'll go take a look." One of the young men rubbed his hands and strode forward. However, just as he was about to get close to the divine stone, a small vine suddenly shot out from the side of the divine stone like a snake. In the blink of an eye, the vine had bound the young man tightly. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. The eyes of the old man and the others trembled. What a strange vine! That was because even with their strength, they could not detect the vine's attack. Monster, how dare you! Seeing that the young man was about to be bound to death by the vine, the old man roared angrily. A sharp sword appeared in his hand, and he wanted to cut the vine in half. Crack, crack, crack. However, when he swung his sword, a crisp sound suddenly rang out. Then, cracks suddenly appeared on the divine stone that was still and motionless. Rumble. At that moment, the entire huge island shook. The small beasts on the island prostrated themselves on the ground, trembling. Bang, bang, bang. At the same time, the sea around the island was also jumping, and the waves continued to surge into the sky. Such a terrifying phenomenon undoubtedly made the old man not dare to act rashly. He held his sword and maintained his posture of slashing. Beads of sweat were quietly dripping down from his forehead. However, for some unknown reason, the phenomenon around him gradually disappeared, and the island returned to its usual calm. Other than the small beasts that were still trembling on the ground, it was as if nothing had happened. Crack, crack. On the contrary, more and more cracks appeared on the divine stone. Then, pieces of it fell off like an eggshell being peeled off. Such a mysterious scene undoubtedly caused the old man and the others to be like stone statues. They did not dare to move at all. After an unknown amount of time, the peeling eggshell finally revealed skin. It was skin that was as white as jade. Then, a handsome man with long hair that casually scattered over his shoulders quietly appeared. The man sat cross-legged. His body was naked, and his breathing was slow. However, for some unknown reason, his breathing seemed to be in harmony with the heavens and earth. It carried a sense of intoxication. Little Kunlun, don't be rude. The man slowly opened his eyes and stood up. This caused the faces of the two women beside the old man to turn red, because the mysterious man was not wearing any clothes at all. Although this scene made them a little shy, for some unknown reason, they did not want to miss a single scene. Chapter 42:17. The man seemed to have not seen the vine for a long time, so he had a doting look on his face. The man and the vine chatted like this, ignoring the old man and the others. However, the old man and the others did not dare to interrupt them. Instead, the scene in front of them gave them an extremely strange feeling. It was as if they were watching the birth of the great Tao. Even their breathing slowed down as they could not bear to interrupt this beautiful and harmonious scene. After the man and the vine talked for a long time, he finally turned around and stood at the edge of the mountain, looking at the vast sea. His gaze seemed to be able to see through everything and landed on the other side of the void in the distance. I can't sense any aura at all. Looking at the back of the man in the blue robe, the old man and the others finally came to their senses and whispered to each other. It's because we can't sense any aura that it's so scary. I'm afraid this is an awakened god or a divine fetus that was born from the essence of the universe. The old man also transmitted his voice, but his voice was filled with reverence. Where is this place? The man in the blue robe stood there for a long time before he finally spoke in a calm voice. His voice was as calm as the sea, like an ancient well without ripples, but it gave people an extremely comfortable feeling. With just one sentence, the old man and the others, who had just met him for the first time, immediately had a good impression of the man in the blue robe. Senior, this is the country of eternity. One of the young men cupped his hands and bowed. The country of eternity? The man in the blue robe's voice was filled with curiosity. The young man nodded and said respectfully, "That's right. The people here will never die. Therefore, this place is called the country of eternity, also known as the other side of the void." Do you know where the Nine States Void is? The man in the blue robe finally turned around and looked at the crowd. His clear eyes were very clean, like the stars in the night sky. The Nine States Void. However, when they heard the man in the blue robe, the old man and the others trembled subconsciously, and their faces were filled with nostalgia. Your Excellency, the Nine States Void is very far from here. We haven't been back for many years. The old man sighed. Then, he saw that the man in the blue robe was puzzled, so he explained, actually, we are all from the Nine States Void. Because we went to the One World Mountain, we were sucked in by the mountain entrance and then arrived here. Then, we can never get out. One World Mountain, one of the 7 forbidden lands of the 9 states. The blue-robed man frowned slightly. And he was Lin Ling. Lin Ling had naturally heard of One World Mountain before. However, he had never imagined that he would actually come to One World Mountain. That's right. The mountain pass of One World Mountain seems to be a powerful void passage. After being sucked in, one can reach another world, and that world is here. That world is also called the Eternal Kingdom, because the people here will never die, and there seems to be no flow of time here. The old man explained. That's right. We've been here for tens of thousands of years. It's been so long that we've almost forgotten ourselves. However, there's no exit to the Eternal Kingdom. The warriors here have always tried to find a way back, but they all failed in the end. The young man beside him said excitedly. Even though there was no death here, only eternity. However, they were still humans in the end. They had their own emotions, their own hometowns, and the people they loved. Therefore, they wanted to return to their hometowns. Moreover, there's no end to getting married and having children here. Therefore, the warriors here can't see the birth of a new life. They can only see the scene before they enter, and it will be maintained forever. After a long time, it's just like being in prison. One of the women also spoke up. Hearing that, Lin Ling's eyes flickered slightly. If one could marry and have children in this place, then the martial artists here would also have the feeling of returning to their roots. But without the feeling of returning to their roots, the martial artists who were trapped here would naturally feel as if they were sitting in a prison. They would feel like they were wandering around outside. Immortality. Lin Ling muttered to himself. He looked at the sky and was filled with curiosity about One World Mountain. Senior, not everyone can reach the mountain pass of One World Mountain. Some people were torn apart by a mysterious force before they reached here and turned into nothingness. Some people were lucky enough to reach here in the end. This place is huge and there's no exit to the outside world. After so many years, many experts have gathered here. These experts have been cultivating and breaking through the great seal of heaven and earth in hopes of escaping this place. However, no matter how strong they are, they can't escape from this place. The shackles of worlds. This place is too strange. Then, these people spoke one after another. Lin Ling was familiar with this place. However, he suddenly had an intuition that he had been through a tunnel a long time ago. Time, this is the time void. Then, Lin Ling's eyes lit up and he had a guess. Time void. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the old man and the others trembled. Over the years, the warriors of Eternal Kingdom had used countless methods to investigate Eternal Kingdom. However, no one had guessed that this was the time void. The time void meant that they had fallen into a gap in the void. Here, time was frozen and even had the power to reverse time. Your Excellency, please take us out of here. Then, the old man knelt down before Lin Ling. When the others saw this, they immediately knelt down and their eyes were moist. Because Lin Ling's origin was mysterious and he had guessed the origin of this place, they had placed all their hopes on Lin Ling. In fact, I don't know how to leave this place either. Moreover, even if you really left, the outside world would have changed. Lin Ling frowned and guessed. His mood was also a little depressed. The time void. Even if Lin Ling could escape from here, who knew how many years had passed by the time he reached the land of the 9 states? Perhaps the Second War of the Gods had already ended. In fact, we have known this for a long time. However, we just want to go back. Even if we can smell the air of our hometown, we will die without regrets. To everyone's surprise, the old man and the others were not surprised by Lin Ling's guess and continued to speak resolutely. Looking at them, their eyes were moist at this moment. Perhaps they had been here for too long and their hearts had already reached their limits. Therefore, in order to leave, they were willing to give up everything. And this was also their obsession, and even more so, their martial Tao. If I can leave, I will definitely bring all of you along. Lin Ling nodded. Like these old men, he had his own obsession. He had to leave this place. Chapter 42:18. Although they didn't know how Lin Ling was going to leave this place, they had a feeling that Lin Ling would definitely be able to leave. If he couldn't do it now, he would definitely be able to do it in the future. That was because there were many warriors in the Eternal Kingdom. However, it was the first time they had seen someone as mysterious as Lin Ling. Let's hope so. Lin Ling didn't comment. He looked into the distance and suddenly asked, "Do you know how long I've been here?" Although we're not very sure, we estimate that it's been at least 3,000 years. Upon hearing that, the old man immediately said, 3,000 years ago, the Eternal Kingdom was in turmoil. The sea flowed backwards and thousands of islands fell. It was as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Someone discovered that the cause of the strange phenomenon was in this area. That's why we came here. At that time, we guessed that you had just arrived in the Eternal Kingdom. When you were in the Eternal Kingdom. Yes, everyone in the Eternal Kingdom knows about this rumor. Because of the strange phenomenon caused by your arrival, we're sure that you can definitely bring us out of here. The others also scrambled to speak first. 3,000 years. Upon hearing that, Lin Ling's pupils constricted. He had been sleeping for 3,000 years. One had to know that he hadn't even practiced martial arts for 5,000 years. Now, he had spent 3,000 years sleeping here, which was half of the time he had spent practicing martial arts. Alright, I need to comprehend. You guys can leave first. If I find a way out, I'll definitely inform you. After that, Lin Ling said to them. He had too many unsolved mysteries in his heart. He needed to explore them one by one. Okay, senior. We'll be on those islands in the distance. The old man and the others immediately nodded. After bowing to Lin Ling, they immediately flew into the distance. 3,000 years, little Kunlun. We've been here for 3,000 years. If 3,000 years had passed in the outside world, I'm afraid that everything would have changed. Lin Ling sat on the edge of the cliff and said to little Kunlun on his arm. His body exuded a lonely aura that was carried away by the wind. It actually caused little Kunlun on the island to feel sad. Senior and grandfather, I wonder how they are doing. Lin Ling muttered to himself. In his mind, the bits and pieces of the past also flowed through. Suddenly, a resolute light appeared in his eyes. No matter what, he had to return. Standing up, Lin Ling went to the place where the god's stone had shattered. Then, he found that there was nothing there except for a sword and a Dragon Ball fragment. The sword was naturally the tyrannical Song Sword, and the Dragon Ball fragment was used to store the Dragon Demon. Who would have thought that all my treasures would disappear in the river of time? Lin Ling shook his head helplessly. He carried the Tyrant Song Sword on his back and released the Dragon Demons. Young Master. After the Dragon Demons appeared, they immediately bowed to Lin Ling. Lin Ling also roughly explained what had happened here. Of course, he also told them that he, Lin Ling, would definitely leave this place. The Dragon Demons trusted Lin Ling very much. Then, they stayed on the island and began to wander around to see if they could find an exit. As for Lin Ling, he continued to stay on the island. At the same time, he began to check his cultivation. Now, his cultivation had reached level 9 Martial God Realm. He had broken through 2 levels in a row. Moreover, 7 Dantians had been born. Among them, the talent of the 7th Dantian was the Vajra Bodhi. This talent was the divine embryo of the Buddha God's guardian god. It was extremely powerful and made Lin Ling's body as fierce as Vajra. Could this talent be born from the Bodhi testimony divine technique? Lin Ling had already sensed the birth of the 7th Dantian when he was asleep, so he was not surprised. Furthermore, he discovered that his physical body's strength had already reached 300,000 world force. This was the effect of the Dragon God talent and the Vajra Bodhi. My strength has improved greatly. It can be said that it has taken a leap. The Human King's Flame, the Vajra Bodhi, and the Thunderlock real body are all 5th grade divine embryos. As for the Realm Devouring Beast and the others, they are all 3rd grade divine embryos. My divine force is also increasing rapidly. Now, it has reached 600 divine embryos. Lin Ling sat on the edge of the cliff and constantly sensed the transformation of his body. 600 divine force. This was without the fusion of talents. If he had fused the talents, Lin Ling felt that he could still improve. Moreover, this was before Lin Ling had comprehended the Bodhi testimony divine technique, the Human King's Flame, and the Thunderlock real body. If he had comprehended all of these, his divine force would have reached 1,000 world force. Talent fusion. Lin Ling stood up and fused the 7 Dantians. However, he failed. Only the Realm Devouring Beast, the Dual Dragon talent, and the Malevolent Ghost Jellyfish could be fused. On the other hand, the Human King's Flame, the Vajra Bodhi, and the Thunderlock real body were incompatible. This was because their levels were not equal. After all, one was a 3rd grade innate divine embryo and the other was a 5th grade divine embryo. Naturally, they could not be fused. Of course, there was another reason. Lin Ling's soul power was not strong enough and had not reached the point where he could fuse all the talents. However, even if he had fused the Realm Devouring Beast and the other 3 talents, the current Lin Ling was several times stronger than before. Fusion. After trying to fuse the 4 talents, Lin Ling tried to fuse the 3 talents of the Human King's Flame. This time, it was a success. After fusing the talents, Lin Ling was several times stronger than before. This meant that Lin Ling now had 2 ways to fuse the talents. After repeated attempts, Lin Ling also separated the 2 methods and called them the first and second changes. The first change was naturally the fusion of the 4 talents. The second change was the fusion of the Human King's Flame, the Thunderlock real body, and the Vajra Bodhi. Unknowingly, time seemed to have passed for a long time, but also seemed to have passed in an instant. Lin Ling, who was at the edge of the mountain peak, was like a stone statue. While he was comprehending his own strength, time passed quietly. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Ling finally stood up and shook off the dust on his body. His eyes looked deeply into the distance. My strength has increased too much, causing me to need a lot of time to comprehend. However, there is an advantage here. Time is frozen. Lin Ling said lightly. He also knew that the 3,000 years that the old man and the others had mentioned was actually the time that they had recorded themselves to remind themselves of how long they had been here. However, in reality, the flow of time could not be felt here. These days, I have tried many methods, but I can't break through this realm. Now, the only way is to open the God's inheritance treasure and let my soul power rush out of the void where the treasure is hidden. Then, I can go to the void of Jojo. Lin Ling muttered to himself. All these years, he had been constantly thinking of ways to leave. Although he was now extremely strong, this kind of strength did not make him happy. Instead, as time passed, his mood became more and more depressed. Swish. 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 Both of his hands formed a complicated seal, trying to open the void. Rumble. Chapter 42:19. Open for me. Open. Sensing a powerful pressure, Lin Ling's eyes turned red. He mustered all his strength and tried to forcefully open the void. However, he failed again and again at first. Finally, at one point, a crack appeared in the void. Go. Go. Lin Ling poured out all his soul power. Like a flood, it rushed into the crack and filled the void. Lin Ling didn't even give up on the god's inheritance treasure. He was looking for a crack in the void in an attempt to return to the 9 prefectures. After a long time, Lin Ling finally found a hair-sized crack. Lin Ling also poured out all his soul power. At the same time, the void of the treasure began to converge and gradually closed. In the kingdom of eternity, Lin Ling sat cross-legged with a cold expression on his face. However, he could sense that his soul power was currently wandering in a strange void. The soul power was like a formless sound wave. After rushing out of the hair-sized crack, it immediately arrived in a vast white void. This place was extremely chaotic. All kinds of strange powers were tumbling. Moreover, after sensing Lin Ling's soul power, an unknown power rushed out. It wanted to devour Lin Ling's soul power. That mysterious power was very powerful. In addition, Lin Ling didn't want to waste time here. Therefore, he controlled his soul power and immediately avoided the limelight. Even so, Lin Ling's soul power was still half devoured by that power. The remaining soul power began to wander wildly in this mysterious space. There's a foreign object approaching. In the dark, Lin Ling heard a voice. It was also filled with hostility. Lin Ling didn't say anything and rushed into the distance again. This space was very strange. Not only was it not the void of the 9 prefectures, but there were also many unknown powers. It was like the convergence of all the universes. As he continued to wander, Lin Ling became familiar with this space. There were all kinds of strange things in this space. It seemed to have existed since the beginning of the universe. However, Lin Ling only roughly explored a part of it. Then, he began to search everywhere. On this day, he finally saw a crack in the space in front of him. This crack wasn't big. It was like a strand of hair. There was a faintly discernible aura swimming in it. It caused a large number of strange things to crazily rush into the crack. They seemed to want to rush out of the crack. What a familiar aura. It's the aura of the 9 prefectures void. Lin Ling's soul power drifted in the distance. He quietly sensed a familiar aura. This caused Lin Ling's soul power to tremble. His soul power, which was originally weak, at this moment, it had more than doubled. Lin Ling didn't know how long he had been searching in this space. He had seen countless void cracks, but the aura that came out of the cracks was very unfamiliar, as if it led to another universe. Only the void crack in front of him led to the 9 prefectures void. This meant that Lin Ling had a chance to go back. Rumble. But right at this moment, a terrifying bolt of lightning suddenly emerged from the hair-sized spatial rift, and it blasted down onto the cloud-like monsters, instantly obliterating them into powder. However, the cloud-like monsters weren't afraid. They still tried to rush into the void without fear of death. Rumble. The thunderbolts continued to appear and destroy the monsters that tried to get close. What a terrifying aura. If it landed on me, it would be enough to destroy me. Lin Ling's soul power trembled. He didn't dare to act rashly. However, he also sensed that the crack was quietly closing. This meant that Lin Ling didn't have much time left. If he couldn't rush out before the crack closed, Lin Ling would lose the chance to return to the 9 prefectures void. Rumble. Thunderbolts appeared in the void and continued to bombard the surrounding monsters. However, there were a few cloud-like monsters that rushed out crazily from the thunderbolts. Those monsters were originally as huge as clouds. However, because of the devastation of the thunderbolts, they became as small as a strand of hair after rushing out. There's a pattern. Lin Ling could see that those monsters had rushed out by luck. However, since they could rush out, it meant that there was a loophole in the powerful thunderbolts. Therefore, as long as he could find a loophole, he would definitely be able to leave this place. At this moment, Lin Ling's soul power remained motionless as he watched the scene in the distance. Crackle. Every cloud-like monster that approached the crack was immediately ravaged by the thunderbolts. Some were ravaged until nothing was left. Some were destroyed until only a small cloud was left. Under the next thunderbolt, that small cloud was instantly annihilated. However, Lin Ling could see that after the first thunderbolt, there was a short period of time. Although it was very short, less than a third of a breath's time, it was the only chance to rush into the crack. And Lin Ling had to seize the opportunity to rush out when the second thunderbolt struck in less than a breath's time. Finally, at a certain moment, the crack became smaller and smaller. Those cloud-like monsters seemed to know that if they didn't rush in, they would completely lose their chance. Therefore, they went crazy. This is the time. Lin Ling's soul power roared and shot forward. Crackle. In front of Lin Ling, there were a large number of cloud-like monsters. When they approached the crack, the thunderbolts in the void destroyed them continuously. On the contrary, Lin Ling borrowed their resistance and was less than 10 meters away from the crack. Rumble. At this moment, the thunderbolts in the void finally arrived and bombarded Lin Ling's soul power. Lin Ling's body contained the real body of Luai's, which caused his soul power to contain a trace of thunderbolt. However, after being bombarded by the thunderbolts, Lin Ling still felt that his soul power was about to collapse. Break for me. However, from Lin Ling's previous observations, he knew that the thunderbolts in the void were not only ferocious, but also capable of paralyzing. If he didn't break the soul power of the thunderbolts, then Lin Ling's soul would be paralyzed. At that time, the second thunderbolt would arrive. Like a gecko losing its tail, Lin Ling gave up half of his soul power and turned it into a strand of soul power as he madly rushed forward. In less than a breath's time, the second thunderbolt finally arrived. If it hit, Lin Ling's soul power wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being turned to ashes. Faster. He had to be faster. Lin Ling had already sensed the terrifying aura around him. At this moment, his soul power was incomparably condensed, like a shuttle or a sword, attempting to cut through time and space. Rumble. A deafening sound rang out, as if the apocalypse was raging on Lin Ling's strand of soul power. But at this time, Lin Ling finally rushed out of the crack. Chapter 42:20. Lin Ling's weak soul force floated in the void as he looked at the void in disbelief. An incomparably familiar feeling enveloped Lin Ling's soul force like a gentle wind. It was very comfortable and very familiar. After 3,000 years, he, Lin Ling, had finally returned to the void of the 9 prefectures. Although it was only a wisp of soul force that returned, it at least proved that Lin Ling had a chance to return. I'm back, ha ha ha. Lin Ling's soul force let out a carefree laugh. Then, like a ghost, it flew through the void. Today, he wanted to go home. He only wanted to see his family. Even if it was just a glance, that was enough. At this moment, 100 years had passed in the void of the 9 prefectures. In these 100 years, the 9 prefectures had been sealed as gods. The cultivators of the 9 prefectures had constantly entered the divine world and increased their strength. Some had already become gods, and some were only half a step away from the 4 great gods. The changes in the 9 prefectures in 100 years could be said to be earth-shaking. The overall strength of the 9 prefectures had increased by more than 100 times compared to 100 years ago. However, the benefits of the 9 prefectures' divine world had also appeared. The mysterious spirit nation had disappeared once again, as if it was afraid of the power of the 9 prefectures. Moreover, all the cultivators knew the spirit nation's goal, so they were all resisting the spirit nation with all their strength. Because no one wanted to be destroyed by the will of the world. Because of the 9 prefectures' divine world, this era had reached its peak. It was also because of this reason that in the past 100 years, countless experts had been born in the 9 prefectures. At this moment, in the snow-blowing city, it was also bustling with noise and excitement. After the 9 prefectures' divine world, the strength of the cultivators in snow-blowing city had greatly increased. Moreover, a large number of experts had been born here. Among the 36 main cities, snow-blowing city was ranked in the top 5. That's the place where Lin Ling lived 100 years ago. Under the distant blue sky, more than a dozen figures were flying towards snow-blowing city. They were powerful, and their auras were extraordinary. Moreover, their faces were calm and relaxed. One of them had his hands behind his back and was in high spirits. His eyes stared into the distance with a touch of excitement. Lin Ling. He muttered to himself with a touch of disdain and sarcasm. And he was Wangu Yanhui. He was the one who had been brutally beaten up by Lin Ling in the Mana Forest. However, after experiencing the investiture of the gods in the 9 states, his strength had undoubtedly increased greatly. Later on, he continued to complete missions and was now a 7-star trial taker. His status and strength had greatly increased. In his free time, he thought back to the past 100 years and immediately felt like he was dreaming. He also thought back to the humiliation he had suffered 100 years ago. Therefore, he came to snow-blowing city to have a look. Lord Yan Hui, although Lin Ling has fallen, the people he left behind are still not to be underestimated. This time, we have come to issue a challenge, so we must be careful. Next to him, someone laughed. What's there to be afraid of? With Lord Yan Hui and the others here, do we have to be afraid of Yu and the others? However, someone immediately retorted. Even if that's the case, Yu and the others are all experts within the top 20 of the heavenly stairway. Moreover, Young Yao, Majin Tianzi, and Sakura have all returned to their divine thrones. Their strength is heaven-defying. The person who spoke earlier sighed with a hint of reverence in his words. 100 years ago, Lin Ling's fall had shocked the entire ultimate world. However, when people thought that Lin Ling's family and friends had lost their protection, who knew that his family and friends had grown rapidly? Experts had appeared one after another and their names had shaken the entire ultimate world. Among them, the most terrifying was the God Slayer Alliance. This huge alliance had gathered hundreds of thousands of experts. Moreover, the Creation Alliance, the Ancient Demon Tribe, the She-Ghost Tribe, and other ancient 9 prefectures 10 evils had joined. As a result, no one dared to provoke them until now. Moreover, rumor had it that the God Slayer Alliance was overseen by a god. Therefore, although Lin Ling had fallen, no one dared to underestimate the forces he left behind. This also led to the legend of Lin Ling in the 9 prefectures void and the 10,000 realms. This person was also regarded as a unique and extraordinary person in the 9 prefectures void era. Although the God Slayer Alliance is terrifying, they dare not provoke a god. This time, we are here on behalf of Situ Feng to challenge Lin Ling's son, Lin Yi. I believe the God Slayer Alliance won't dare to say anything in such a fair battle. At this time, Wangu Yanhui said indifferently. His eyes flickered with a trace of intense jealousy. Now that he was a 7-star trial taker, he had tried to recruit the God Slayer Alliance and even swallow the entire God Slayer Alliance. However, after his suggestion, the entire God Slayer Alliance ignored him and even disdained him. This made him very angry. After all, Lin Ling was a trial taker and so was he. Moreover, Lin Ling was already dead. Why wouldn't the God Slayer Alliance follow him? Of course, although he was angry, he didn't dare to act recklessly against the God Slayer Alliance. This was because the God-Slayer alliance was also a huge force in the 9 prefectures void. Even the gods were paying attention to them. If the Spirit Nation's experts were to invade in the future, the God-Slayer alliance would definitely be a powerful army. Lord Yanhui, we're here. At this time, a person beside him laughed. Wangu Yanhui nodded and did not enter through the city gates. Instead, he stepped into the city from the sky and appeared in the sky above Snow Wind City. Lin Yi, come out and see me. With his hands behind his back, he snorted coldly. His voice was like endless thunder, spreading throughout Snow Wind City and Snow Wind Academy. Countless echoes echoed and countless people raised their heads. Everyone was shocked. This person was so rude that he dared to call Lord Lin Yi by his name. He even dared to appear in the sky above Snow Wind City, as if he wanted to trample on Snow Wind City. Who are you? How dare you? Soon, a large number of experts rushed out. The 2 people in the lead were the City Lord Sangchiri and the old woman. City Lord of Snow Wind City, your status is not equal to mine. You are not qualified to speak to me. However, Wangu Yanhui, who was in the sky, looked at Sangchiri with contempt and said disdainfully. Sangchiri, do you know who he is? He is Yojin's 7-star trial taker, Lord Wangu Yanhui. Who do you think you are to be qualified to speak to him? Beside Wangu Yanhui, there were also people clamoring loudly. 7-star trial taker. Hearing that person's words, Sangchiri and the old woman's faces changed obviously. If it were someone else, they would have already attacked. However, the trial taker's status was not to be trifled with, especially when he was a 7-star trial taker. They could not afford to provoke him. Moreover, even the God-Slayer alliance could not easily provoke a 7-star trial taker. I wonder what matter this trial challenger has come here for. After taking a deep breath, Sangchiri said indifferently. Chapter 42-21. Then, what are you doing here? At this time, a crisp voice sounded at the same time, followed by 3 figures coming from afar. Wangu Yanhui's gaze swept over them, and there was a slight surprise in his eyes because the 3 people who came were all very beautiful and powerful, only slightly weaker than him. However, it wasn't difficult for Wangu Yanhui to guess their identity. He said indifferently, you should be Yuyu, and Yuer, and Xian Yuan Gu, Today, Yuyu and the other 2 were incomparably famous in the final world. They were extremely high-ranked experts on the god list. Because in the past 100 years, they had also gone to the 9 regions to ascend to the divine realm, and finally returned to the divine realm. The 3 women's previous lives were obviously very extraordinary. Yes, what's the matter? Yuyu nodded and said. Nothing important, I have a friend who has a grudge with Lin Yi, so today I brought him here to issue a challenge. What's wrong? This is also not allowed. Wangu Yanhui said indifferently, or, Lin Ling's trash son doesn't dare. The last sentence was full of sarcasm. How dare you? As soon as his words fell, a large number of curses came from Snow Wind City. This person actually dared to call Lord Lin Yi trash. Lin Yi's reputation in Snow Wind City was not weak, and he was one of the top experts in Snow Wind Academy's Shinsan Hall. However, Wangu Yanhui turned a blind eye and shrugged his shoulders with a smile. He also knew that since Lin Ling disappeared, in the past 100 years, many of Lin Ling's former enemies would come to find him. Although they did not dare to blatantly cause trouble, but a few words of sarcasm were inevitable. Trash. If Brother Ling is here, do you dare to say that? At this time, Yu also said indifferently. Xian and Yue were not angry because in the past 100 years, they had already heard countless sarcastic words. Perhaps, Lin Ling's limelight was too great, so after his death, many people hit him when he was down. Sometimes, that kind of gossip was actually more uncomfortable than directly attacking. Lin Ling is not as great as you say. Wangu Yanhui coldly snorted and continued. Is that so? Then, who was the one who was beaten into a dog by Lin Ling in the demon forest and taken away by another trial taker? Yu Yu indifferently said. And who was the one who relied on his identity as a 4-star trial taker to be smug in front of Lin Ling, only to be suppressed until he couldn't speak? And Yuer also spoke. It's just that Lin Ling isn't here. If he was, you wouldn't be so arrogant. Xian Yuanji's words as voices her words. Hers words, Wangu's. Shut up. Wangu bye Wangu is an S obviously, he did not dare to make a move against Yu Yu and the others. He could only use snow-blowing city to act wildly. Trash. Seeing this, Yu Yu and the others also snorted coldly. The three voices in unison undoubtedly exhausted Wangu Yanhui's patience. He, a dignified 7-star challenger, was actually being mocked by 3 delicate beauties. Although you're strong, don't force me to make a move. The moment I make a move, you'll know the meaning of regret. Wangu Yanhui's cold gaze fell on Yu Yu's group. He almost couldn't hold himself back. Shoo! 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 At this time, a large number of experts arrived. It was the God-slaying alliance. Are you fucking courting death? The person leading the group was Sakura. He had rushed over as soon as he heard the news. Now that he saw this scene, he was undoubtedly enraged. In the past 100 years, he had seen many similar scenes. His anger had long reached its limit. Sakura, the 12th on the god list. TSK, very powerful but your strength is nothing to me. Seeing Sakura, Wangu Yanhui showed no fear. He waved his right hand again and destroyed a large number of houses in front of Sakura. Then, Wangu Yanhui unscrupulously spread his arms and said, I'm just this arrogant. Go to hell. Sakura couldn't hold himself back anymore. He wanted to make a move, but he was stopped by someone. It was young Beast Lord. Young Beast Lord said coldly, Old Emperor, don't fall into his trap. He's forcing you to make a move so he can find an excuse to behave atrociously. Hearing young Beast Lord's words, Sakura calmed down. Wangu Yanhui was one of the 4 great gods. If he rashly made a move, Wangu Yanhui would find an opportunity to make a move. That would be a bigger blow to snow-blowing city. Of course, Wangu Yanhui didn't dare to make a move against the god-slaying alliance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have angered everyone. A bunch of trash. Seeing that no one dared to speak, Wangu Yanhui sneered. He then threw out a letter of challenge, 3 months later, have Lin Ling's trash son fight me. Situ Feng is waiting for him, let's go. After throwing out the letter of challenge, Wangu Yanhui waved his hand again. A powerful force destroyed more than half of snow-blowing city. Ha ha ha. Wangu Yanhui's maniacal laughter echoed in the sky. Lin Ling. Just a piece of trash. He didn't dare to meet me, so he chose to die. Too bad he left behind so many friends and family to be humiliated by others. Ha ha ha, looks like Lin Ling is not only trash, but also a coward. Wangu Yanhui's maniacal laughter was accompanied by a ridiculing sentence. Everyone's body trembled, and their eyes turned red. If Lord Lin Ling had not fallen, would Wangu Yanhui dare to be so arrogant? In terms of strength, Lord Lin Ling surpassed Wangu Yanhui. In terms of identity, Lord Lin Ling was also a trial taker. If Lord Lin Ling was still alive, Wangu Yanhui would not even dare to fart in front of Lord Lin Ling. Bastard! Young Master Yao, Sakura, and the others were so angry that their bodies trembled. However, when they thought of the man who disappeared 100 years ago, their hearts were filled with sorrow. In these 100 years, they kept telling themselves that Lin Ling was not dead, that he was definitely not dead. However, 100 years had passed, and their former leader's whereabouts were still unknown. They even guessed that Lin Ling might really be dead. However, they were unwilling to accept this. They were unwilling to accept that the person who made the god-slaying alliance famous in the 9 prefectures had fallen in the river of time. Big Brother Ling. Yu, and the other two's eyes also became moist. In these 100 years, they had tried all kinds of methods to find Lin Ling, and even invited Lei Gong to the netherworld. However, all their efforts were to no avail. Lin Ling seemed to have disappeared forever, as if he had never appeared. Moreover, Lei Gong told them that Lin Ling did not appear in the netherworld. This meant that he was completely destroyed by the powerful forces of the God's era. Chapter 42-22. However, the flame left behind by Lin Ling would be passed down and even carried forward. Just like the legend of Lin Ling, let this legend continue to shine in Jojo for thousands of years. Rumble. However, at this moment, an incomparably terrifying majestic aura suddenly struck. It was as if a great calamity had befallen the world. Wangu Yanhui was sneering at Huang Xiaolong, but in front of him, a ferocious soul force roiled like a torrential river, like a vast sea. Within that soul force, a familiar aura rushed into Wangu Yanhui's heart. This. Wangu Yanhui's body trembled and he began to tremble. Bang! He fell from the sky and landed on the ground. His face was incomparably pale and bean-sized sweat dripped from his forehead onto the ground. This was because he was too familiar with that aura. If it was not Lin Ling, who else could it be? What's going on? At this moment, in Snow City, countless people raised their heads. They had also sensed the terrifying energy fluctuation. Yu and the others stared at the sky and their eyes suddenly became wet. Although they did not see anyone, they had sensed the aura. Even if that aura turned into ashes, they would not forget it. Rumble. At this moment, the sky continued to shake. Then, 2 large words formed by soul force appeared in the sky. Wait for me. These 2 words were simple and clear, but they were so huge that they covered the sky. Wait for me. Those who did not know what was going on were shocked. This sentence obviously made them very suspicious. Look. But soon, someone pointed at the 2 words in the sky, and 2 more words appeared there. Although they were smaller, the strokes were as sharp as swords, and people could clearly see what the words were. Lin Ling. As soon as these 2 words fell, the hearts of countless cultivators exploded. The legendary figure from 100 years ago appeared in their minds. Lin Ling was not dead. For a moment, Snow City was as silent as death. Yu and the others, young Master Yao and the others, Sangchiri and the others, all stared at the sky with tears in their eyes. However, there were smiles on their faces. After 100 years, there was finally news of Lin Ling. Lin Ling was also telling them that he, Lin Ling, was not dead and was waiting for his return. Wow! Di Shitian's face was completely red, and he finally couldn't help but burst into tears. Looking at the people who were familiar with Lin Ling, they couldn't help but burst into tears. However, the cries were tears of joy. Lin Ling, you're not dead yet. Let's go. On the ground, Wangu Yanhui thought of the fierce man who had beaten him into a dog in the past. At this moment, he did not even have the strength to stand up. Rolling and crawling, he escaped from snow-blowing city like a stray dog. Even as he crawled, his pants were wet and his urine kept dripping out. As for the few people who came with him, they were confused. They did not understand why Lord Yan Hui was so scared after the words appeared in the sky. It could be said that he was so scared that he peed his pants. Hurry back and inform Eugene. After crawling out of snow-blowing city, Wangu Yanhui regained a bit of his courage and immediately ran towards the distance. He knew that once the news of Lin Ling leaving behind a letter spread out, the void of the 9 regions would definitely be in turmoil. Even the disappeared spirit nation would be in turmoil. And the fact was indeed so. After the second day, the news snowballed and spread throughout the void of the 9 regions. Lin Ling left a letter in Snow-Blowing City. Wait for me. This also let many people know that Lin Ling was not dead yet. Many people guessed that Lin Ling must be trapped in a space at this moment and would not be able to come out in a short period of time. Good, good, good. In Lei Gong's main hall, Lei Gong was undoubtedly very excited after hearing the news. As for the experts under him, they were shocked because Lin Ling was actually not dead after being destroyed by the divine circle. This was a miracle. Could it be that Lin Ling had the power to fight against the ancient gods? Humph, even if he's not dead, with his strength, what can he do? Of course, while some people were happy, there were naturally people who were disdainful. Sister Na Zhen, Zhong Shan, and the others didn't take this news to heart at all. After experiencing the investiture of the gods in the 9 continents for 100 years, they were no longer the same as before. In their eyes, Lin Ling was as weak as an ant. At this moment, in the Eternal Kingdom, on the ancient island, Lin Ling slowly opened his eyes. That wisp of soul force has completely dissipated. Lin Ling said indifferently. However, before the soul force dissipated, he saw Yu Yu and the others, which made him completely relieved. I didn't expect that 100 years had passed over there and the strength of the entire 9 regions had greatly increased. The investiture of the 9 regions was truly terrifying. When Lin Ling's soul force went to Snow-Blowing City, naturally, he also checked the changes in the 9 regions. However, for him, the changes brought about by the investiture of the 9 regions could never be compared to the changes brought by Lin Ling's strength. The spirit nation has disappeared again. Then, Lin Ling muttered to himself as he looked into the distance. The knot in his heart that had been suppressed for a long time finally weakened a lot because this time, he left behind the words, "Wait for me," which was also to tell Yu Yu and the others that he was fine. The only thing he could do now was to increase his strength and strengthen his soul force so that he could completely rush out of the Eternal Kingdom. Without wasting any more time, Lin Ling sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate again. Now that he had reached the 9th level of the martial god realm, this meant that he could open the god's inheritance treasure 2 more times. Therefore, Lin Ling wanted to use these 2 opportunities to open the void and return to the 9 regions because the god's inheritance treasure was the only path to the void of the 9 regions. What Lin Ling wanted to cultivate now was the Bodhi-proof divine ability because he needed to strengthen his soul force. Time passed quietly. The ancient island regained its vitality in the past, with birds chirping and flowers fragrant, as if it was an otherworldly paradise. However, no one could see that on the highest peak of the island, among the drifting clouds, a man was sitting cross-legged. He was like a stone statue, constantly comprehending. His soul power and godly power were also increasing rapidly. Spring went and autumn came, flowers withered and bloomed. After an unknown number of years, the nearby sea had already undergone earth-shaking changes. There was no flow of time here, which gave Lin Ling enough time to cultivate. On this day, a group of experts finally arrived on the island. There were old and young experts, but their strength was heaven-defying. If they were in the 9 regions, each of them would be comparable to the leaders of the 9 regions 10 fierce 10. Sea-gazing venerable, this island seems a little different. These people landed on the island and stared at the small beast on the island, all of them laughing. Dear Qilin, TSK, I didn't expect to encounter such a strange beast. Chapter 42-23. Everyone, it seems like we've arrived at a mythical island. Don't hold back and plunder as much as you can. Those people revealed their greedy eyes. Next, they would plunder the mythical island. GG. Gua gua. The little beasts on the island had never encountered such plunder before. They all ran around frantically. Die. One of them waved his hand and killed a Qilin. Then, he drank its blood. The island that was full of vitality was now welcoming endless slaughter. However, at this moment, the stone statue on the highest peak of the island slowly swayed and gradually woke up. It was a kind of awakening that seemed to have happened after thousands of years. Rumble. The moment it opened its eyes, the entire island shook. The sea in the distance was filled with terrifying waves. It was as if the heavens and earth were shaking. This was soul force, an incomparably huge amount of soul force. This also made those greedy martial artists stop their actions and squint their eyes. There's a mountain here. There seems to be some treasure on top of it. Could it be that the reason why these little beasts and treasures could grow up like this is because of that mountain? Someone guessed. In my opinion, it's true. I'll go and take a look. A majestic old man sneered. With a move, he disappeared from the spot and shot towards the mountain. Seeing this, the others were furious. The Taurus sovereign king was too greedy. He actually wanted to take the treasure for himself. At this moment, they all rushed towards the mountain. However, just as they moved, they saw the Taurus sovereign king slowly floating down. Moreover, there was another person beside him. At this moment, he was pressing down on the Taurus sovereign king's shoulder. He was forcefully pressing down the Taurus sovereign king who was soaring into the sky to the ground. What a powerful strength! Everyone's expression turned solemn because the Taurus sovereign king was one of the strongest among them. It would take at least 3 days and 3 nights to defeat him. But now, the Taurus sovereign king was forcefully pulled down by someone else. Then, they stared at the side of the Taurus sovereign king and found that it was a man in a blue robe. The man's long hair fell to his shoulders. His face was calm as he looked at everyone. Not knowing why, when they looked at that pair of eyes, everyone had a strange feeling. The man seemed to have no strength at all. His eyes were too calm. His eyes were too pure. "Sir, who are you?" Finally, someone said faintly. "If you cripple your own cultivation, I'll let you leave here alive." After the man landed on the ground, he spoke calmly. His voice seemed polite, but it contained an irresistible majesty. "Sir, aren't you being too arrogant? You want us to cripple our own cultivation. Do you know what you're saying?" Hearing this, one of them said coldly. His eyes stared at the small beasts around the island, still filled with greed. Bang! At this moment, the blue-robed man clenched his fist and the Taurus sovereign king's arm turned into ashes. Even the flesh and blood turned into nothingness. "My hand!" The Taurus monarch also let out a painful cry. Bang! However, the blue-robed man was expressionless as he punched the Taurus monarch in the stomach. A powerful force rushed into his dantian and destroyed it. I've been crippled." The Taurus monarch fell to the ground and shook his head in disbelief. To be able to destroy his dantian with a single punch and not be able to detect any realm essence, just what kind of deity was this person? Crippled, the Taurus monarch is crippled. The others also had a look of disbelief on their faces. Because, they also couldn't detect any realm essence and deity energy. Whoosh! At this moment, the blue-robed man moved again. His speed was incomparably fast. In the blink of an eye, he had the power of 40,000 realms. Bang! 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 A dull sound rang out. Next, one by one, experts fell to the ground and rolled around in pain. Their dantians were all destroyed. As for the experts who had just landed on the island in the distance, when they saw this scene, their faces turned pale with fright. It was too fast. They couldn't catch it at all. Run immediately. They had just set foot on the island and now they wanted to run away. Go and inform the Ink Frost Realm and the Tualuo sect. They flew towards the distant sky and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. On the island, the blue-robed man squatted down and treated the severely injured small beasts. With a gentle wave of his right hand, a pure Buddha energy spread out. Under this energy, the dying small beasts gradually recovered. After climbing up, they licked the blue-robed man and surrounded him. The blue-robed man jumped up happily. As for the ground, everyone fell there and looked at the blue-robed man with anger and fear. They were angry because this man actually crippled them. They were terrified because this man's strength was too strong. "Sir, why aren't you leaving? The Tualuo sect and the rest are coming. They are one of the top experts in the Eternal Kingdom," someone said coldly. Obviously, they were crippled and wanted to see the blue-robed man panic. "If he comes, then I'll cripple him too." The blue-robed man didn't even look at the person who spoke. Instead, he stared at a bald burly man and walked over. "The dear Qilin died because of you." Arriving in front of the burly man, the blue-robed man said calmly. This burly man was the one who had eaten the deer Qilin. Now that he saw the blue-robed man looking down at him, he finally panicked. He never expected that such a strange person was hidden on the island in the sea. No, it should be said that he was a deity. "Wait, I can explain, because..." The burly man anxiously waved his hand and hurriedly begged. Bang! However, the blue-robed man didn't say a word. He raised his foot and lightly stomped down. Boom! The burly man turned into nothingness. A light stomp was so terrifying. Could it be that this is the legendary physical strength? But when did the physical strength reach such a level? Everyone stared at the blue-robed man with eyes full of fear. "Spare us, spare us." Next, they got up one by one and kowtowed to the blue-robed man. They now knew that they had trespassed on his forbidden land. If he wanted to kill them, they couldn't blame him. However, the blue-robed man ignored them. Instead, he looked into the distance and said indifferently, "The three of you are the strongest, comparable to the top 10 martial gods of the 9 states. Who are you?" In the sky, a large number of figures began to appear. They all looked at the blue-robed man solemnly. Among them, 3 of them had the most serious expressions and their eyes continued to flicker. This was because the 3 of them were the strongest, but they couldn't see through this mysterious blue-robed man at all. "I'm from the Tualuo sect, one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 states a long, long time ago." Finally, a white-haired old man spoke. Chapter 42-24. "Sir, do you mean that we should join forces against you?" The white-haired old man's eyes narrowed when he heard this. Presently, his strength couldn't be compared to all those years ago, and he'd advanced by leaps and bounds after so many years of cultivation. However, that blue-robed man still dared to fight them, and it was even the 3 strongest amongst them. The 3 of them were extremely famous in the Kingdom of Eternity. "If you join forces, you might be qualified to move me." The blue-robed man looked up and said calmly. His words seemed calm, but they carried a domineering aura. "Qualified? No one has said that to us in a long time, but I want to ask where you got your qualifications from." "Yes." The other 2 top experts narrowed their eyes. They were also infuriated. "Here is my qualifications." "Yes." The blue-robed man nodded. His long robe and long hair fluttered, and a powerful aura descended. "Talent fusion, first transformation." Yes. He wanted to test his strength. After all, he had been sitting on the mountain peak like a stone statue for a long time. Boom! 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 The island shook, and countless water dragons erupted from the distant sea. It was as if the earth was shaking. All the experts felt a gravitational force coming at them. It was as if countless hands were pulling them down to the ground. This power, could it be his physical strength? It should be. Most importantly, his physical strength has probably reached 400,000 worlds. The 3 strongest experts said nervously. When the billowing dust dispersed, they saw a monster in front of them. They called it a monster because it was too strange. It had a dragon tail and horns, and its hands were dragon claws. However, its skin was pitch black and covered in scales. Most importantly, there were countless gorgeous tentacles on its back. They fused with its long hair that reached the ground, making it look incomparably powerful. "Is this enough?" the monster said in a low voice. With a wave of his right hand, fierce divine power gushed out. "This is 500 rays of divine power. No, it's even higher. It's at least 600. The three strongest people roared again. At this moment, they were already aware that this man possessed the qualifications to fight the three of them, and he was even able to defeat them in a straightforward manner. "Sir, we admit defeat." Tuoluo Men immediately cupped his fists and said with a pale face. "For me, there is no such thing as admitting defeat. There is only being crippled and being killed." A cold voice drifted out. The monster's eyes had a merciless, metallic light. Hearing this, everyone fell to the ground in fright. "Motherfucker, who told us to come? This is going to get us killed. Am I going to be crippled? No, I can't be crippled. Everyone, let's fight together. Perhaps we'll have a chance to kill him. If you want to go, you go." After sitting on the ground, these experts let out dispirited groans. They had lost the will to resist, not even the slightest thought of resisting. That was because the other party was too powerful. He had directly destroyed their confidence. They were sure that if this person returned to the 9 prefectures, then his strength would definitely be ranked amongst the 10 great martial gods of the 9 prefectures or even slightly stronger. Even the 3 strongest members of the Buddha Luo sect were extremely pale. The power of 400,000 worlds, such power was already very difficult for them to resist. However, it just so happened that this person possessed the power of 600 strands of divinity. Moreover, judging from the terrifying amount of divinity, he had surpassed the ordinary martial god realm. Coupled with the unfathomable divine fetus, even 10 of them might not be a match for him. "Your Excellency, we were reckless in this matter. We hope that your Excellency will be magnanimous and spare us." Afterward, the Buddha Roll Gate cupped his hands and bowed. "No." However, the other party shook his head emotionlessly like a god. Moreover, the power on his body receded like a receding tide. He gradually returned to his human form and slowly put on a blue robe. Judging from his appearance, he didn't seem to be afraid of the Buddha Roll Gate's sneak attack at all. He seemed to be extremely confident. The eyes of the 3 Buddha Roll Gates people flickered. Now that the man in blue had unlocked his strongest form, if they joined forces, they might be able to kill him in one move. The man in blue was too confident in his own strength and was somewhat careless. Immediately, many people's eyes turned cold as they quietly looked at the 3 Buddha Roll Gate experts. As long as the 3 experts attacked, they would immediately fight with their lives on the line. However, the 3 Buddha Roll Gates people were filled with thoughts. They were experts who had cultivated for countless years, but this was the first time in their lives that they considered something so seriously. Was it worth it? In just a short period of time, they seemed to have overcome a great calamity. In the end, the Buddha Roll Gate looked up and smiled wryly. "Still can't do it." He indeed wanted to use the man in blue's carelessness to deal a fatal blow, but his subconscious told him not to do so because it was too dangerous. The moment he said this, everyone sighed inwardly. They knew that they had missed the best opportunity. The man in blue was still slowly putting on his clothes. He didn't even glance at them as if he didn't know what they were thinking. "Your Excellency, you're awake." At this time, several figures arrived from afar. They were overjoyed when they saw Lin Ling. They were the group of people who had stepped onto the island for the first time, so when they saw Lin Ling, they immediately bowed again. Their respectful appearance caused many people's pupils to constrict. "Old Hai. The three Buddha roll gate experts recognized the old man in the lead. They knew that this was an indomitable expert who had fought against the four great experts of the North Sea for 3 days and 3 nights without losing. Moreover, Old Hai had an unruly temperament and had never submitted to anyone in his life. Forget about bowing, it was impossible for him to even greet someone. Of course. But now, he was bowing to the man in blue. Buddha Roll Gate, Inky Frost Realm, what are you doing here? The old man frowned and looked at Buddha Roll Gate's group. It's like this. Buddha Roll Gate's group hurriedly explained the general situation. What? You're crazy. Hearing this, Old C was taken aback and immediately roared. He knew that this senior called Lin Ling had been in seclusion on the island all this time. 1,000 years ago, he'd even told him that he'd left the kingdom of eternity. Buddha Roll Gate and the others had dared to provoke such a figure. Old Hai didn't say a word. He took a step forward, arrived in front of Buddha Roll Gate's group, and viciously slapped them. Are you blind? How dare you disturb a senior's cultivation? If I don't hit you today, my surname isn't Hai. Little you, go give each of them 10 slaps. Make it loud and clear. Old Hai roared as he slapped them. Buddha Roll Gate's group's pupils constricted. Old Hai dared slap their faces. It was understandable that the mysterious man had bullied them. Who told him to be so strong? But Old Hai dared to bully them. Old Hai was strong, but not strong enough to make them fear him. Inky Frost Realm wanted to act up, but Buddha Roll Gate stopped it. Chapter 42-25. You're so stubborn. Alright, I love to beat up stubborn people. If I don't beat you until you call me daddy, then I'll change my surname to yours. Lao Hai beat them up even more fiercely, and he even broke their teeth. However, they were able to endure it and didn't move at all. As for the others, they were constantly being slapped by Lao Hai's disciples and didn't dare say a single word. That's enough. After an unknown period of time, the blue-robed man finally spoke to stop them. Senior, they were ignorant and disrupted your bitter cultivation. If I don't beat them up today, then they won't be able to live. However, their crimes don't warrant death. Lao Hai immediately turned around and bowed when he heard the blue-robed man. Earlier, it seemed like he'd beaten up the Buddha cult's disciples, but he was actually saving them. I'll give you some face and let this matter go. Sure enough, the blue-robed man gave them some face, and his words caused them to feel relieved. The members of the Buddha cult gazed at Lao Hai with even more gratitude because they finally understood this fellow's painstaking efforts. On the other hand, the blue-robed man looked towards the distance and asked indifferently, how long has it been since I came looking for you? Senior, it has been 1,000 years. Lao Hai immediately replied. I never expected that I, Lin Ling, would have been here for 4,000 years. The blue-robed man nodded when he heard this. 4,000 years of bitter cultivation was equivalent to half of the time Lin Ling had spent cultivating. Lin Ling had never imagined that he would be trapped here for 4,000 years. Because it felt like only the blink of an eye to him. Of course, 4,000 years of bitter cultivation would allow any cultivator in the 9 provinces' strength to advance by leaps and bounds. As for Lin Ling, his strength had attained a terrifying leap. Unfortunately, this wasn't Lin Ling's home in the end, so Lin Ling wasn't excited at all. He didn't want to be like these people, trapped in here and imprisoned forever. As they watched Lin Ling gaze silently at the sky, the others didn't dare speak. The more they interacted with him, the more unfathomable he was. Based on his imposing aura, he didn't seem like a human at all but seemed like a god. For a moment, everyone stood there quietly. For some reason, standing beside Lin Ling, they also felt incomparably comfortable, as if they were listening to the great Tao. Old Hai, who is this senior? Why is he so powerful? Could it be a hidden god of eternal kingdom? Tuo Luo Men couldn't hold back his curiosity and secretly transmitted his voice. hiding? The corner of Old Hai's mouth twitched as he said indifferently, he has only been here for 4,000 years. What? Tua Luo Gate gasped. Keep in mind that they have been cultivating here for countless years, perhaps more than 100,000 years. Yet, they couldn't compare to a junior who has been cultivating here for 4,000 years. Humph, do you still remember the vision from 4,000 years ago? The kingdom of eternity was in turmoil, the sea was flowing backward, and the islands were falling. All these phenomena were caused by this senior. Old C secretly transmitted to Tua Luo men when he saw their expressions. Tua Luo Gate's group shuddered when they heard this. They looked at Lin Ling with reverence in their eyes. To be able to cause such turmoil in the kingdom of eternity, such a character must be the reincarnation of a great character. Then, they became even quieter. Since Lin Ling didn't say anything, they didn't dare to move a muscle. Lin Ling was still looking at the sky. Over the years, not only had he strengthened his soul force and strength, but he had also been constantly speculating about something. As his soul force grew stronger, Lin Ling seemed to have understood some things. It was as if he could see through the great Tao, see through the mysteries of heaven. He knew that someone had deliberately arranged for him to come here. Everything was just a test. Moreover, the reason Lin Ling was able to greatly increase his strength was also because of someone's help. For example, Lin Ling's current physical strength was 300,000 worlds. If he used the first transformation, he could reach 400,000 worlds. If he used the second transformation, he could reach a terrifying 500,000 worlds. The same was true for his power of divinity. At the second transformation, he could reach 1,000 strands of divinity. Coupled with the surging world essence in his 7 dantian, without the support of a huge amount of cultivation resources, it was impossible to succeed. As for why that person wanted to help Lin Ling, this wasn't something that Lin Ling could understand. However, Lin Ling knew that in this void, other than the 4 great gods, there were actually even stronger ancient gods. The reason why these great gods didn't appear was probably as Lin Ling had guessed. They were all in another place. Outside the void, they were trying their best to stop the will of the world. And to need all the great gods to stop it, this also showed how terrifying the will of the world was. Back then, I had a guess that the will of the world was the will of the universe, the strongest expert that surpassed the era. I hope this guess doesn't come true. Heaven. In the legends of China, Hong Jun was the master of Taishang Lao Jun and the others. However, above Hong Jun, there was the will of the universe. If the will of the universe was the will of the world, how could they fight? Heaven. Several thoughts flashed through Lin Ling's mind. The more he came into contact with it, the more he discovered the magnificence of the universe's void. Although his strength had greatly increased, he was still just a strand of duckweed. While Lin Ling was quietly thinking, Old Hai and the others were still looking at Lin Ling. Suddenly, a calm voice floated out from Lin Ling's mouth. It's time to go back. Go. As soon as this voice fell, everyone's hearts exploded. Plop. Tua Luo men and the others were so frightened that they sat down on the ground, their faces pale. Then, he said nervously, Senior, where are we going back? Go. Go back. It seemed like a simple word, but it was their lifelong pursuit of martial arts. They had been here for tens of thousands of years, always wanting to go back, but it ended in failure. Now, they had completely given up, thinking that they would never be able to go back. Now, a mysterious man was telling them that it was time to go back. This was a dream. Lin Ling also retracted his gaze, then looked at Tua Luo men and the others, revealing the first smile in 4,000 years, go home. Go. A soft word, but it actually made people tremble, their eyes moist. Senior, you're not lying to me, right? Mo Shuangjia cried loudly, so excited that her whole body trembled. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her cheek was welcomed with a foot. It came from Old Hai, and Mo Shuangjie's nose was crooked. Old Hai also cried and said, "Who the fuck do you think you are? You're not qualified to be deceived by Senior." Yes. However, Mo Shuangjie was not angry at all. She then kowtowed to Lin Ling, "Senior, please take me with you. Senior, please take me with you." Everyone cried and kowtowed to Lin Ling. They had been trapped here for eternity, and after a long time, they were like walking corpses. So, how could they not want to go home? Because only if they could go home, that would prove that they were a person, not an eternal rock. And this feeling, only those who had been trapped here for tens of thousands of years could deeply understand. Chapter 42-26. Senior, it's enough as long as we can go back. Everyone continued to kowtow. Lin Ling smiled and looked at the sky. His terrifying soul power finally erupted. "If I want to go, no one can stop me." With a roar, the entire Eternal Kingdom was shaken. After 4,000 years of cultivation, Lin Ling's soul power had reached 70,000 levels. It was more than twice as strong as before. This was also the biggest increase in Lin Ling's strength since he went into seclusion. "Senior, you can actually use soul power. What a terrifying soul power." Under Lin Ling's soul power, all the experts felt their surroundings distort. They were so scared that their mouths were trembling. Physical strength, realm origin, divine embryo, and soul power. This blue-robed man was too terrifying. "Over here." Then, Lin Ling appeared in the sky and stepped into the distance. His soul power had been searching for the weakest point of this world before opening the void. This way, it wouldn't be as dangerous as the last time. "Follow Senior." Seeing Lin Ling running into the distance, everyone was afraid that they would be too slow and quickly followed. They were also transmitting their voices. "Lai San, follow my voice transmission talisman. Catch up immediately. I want to go home. Go home." 666, you must have damaged your brain from cultivating. How can we go back from here? Damn it, are you coming or not? Don't blame me if you don't. Wait, I'll come, I'll come. Although each day in the Eternal Kingdom felt like a year, they had made many friends. At this moment, they were all informing their friends. "We can go home. I hope they didn't lie to us." In the distant sea, a large number of experts were running towards Lin Ling. Lin Ling only glanced at them and ignored them. He continued to walk forward slowly. Although his steps seemed slow, in fact, his speed had reached 10,000 worlds in a breath. "Old Hai, I'm coming. You can't be lying to me, right? Who can bring us home? That kid? What the hell, he looks even younger than me." Some of the warriors who had just arrived were in disbelief when they saw Lin Ling. Bang bang bang. However, this was immediately met with Buddha Luo Men's punches and kicks, beating these people until their noses and faces were swollen. This was because they had witnessed Lin Ling's miraculous feats with their own eyes and believed him a bit. They wouldn't allow others to humiliate Lin Ling, call him Senior immediately. After beating them up and making sure they were obedient, Tuo Luo Men shouted angrily. "It's my fault. I'll shout, okay? Senior." The person who was beaten still didn't quite believe it, but he didn't dare to go against everyone's will. However, Lin Ling ignored them completely. His gaze was locked into the distance as he said calmly, "Dragon demons, come back. We're going home." His voice was like an invisible sound wave that spread throughout the entire Eternal Kingdom. Rumble. From every direction of the distant sea, waves soared into the sky. A large number of experts were rushing over, stirring up a bloody storm as they charged into the sea. At a closer look, these people were in the form of dragons and humans. However, they were all extremely powerful. All of them were at the peak of the martial god realm. "It's them, the Sea Dragon King." Seeing those experts rushing over, everyone was greatly alarmed. For the past 4,000 years, a group of experts had appeared in the Eternal Kingdom. All of them could transform into dragons and were extremely powerful. They had beaten the martial artists of the Eternal Kingdom until they cried out in pain. They had already made a name for themselves. Moreover, this group of half-dragon half-human demons were very arrogant. They didn't make friends with others and only trusted their own people. When others greeted them with smiles and even tried to curry favor with them, they would only receive disdainful looks from the dragon demons. "Senior, this is bad. It's that group of sea dragon demons. They are the most ferocious. They must be here to cause trouble. Senior, be careful." Tuoluo Men was very familiar with the sea dragon demons and immediately warned as if they were facing a great enemy. Meanwhile, by his side, everyone had already condensed their realm essence, preparing for a great battle. "Sir." However, when the ferocious sea dragon demons arrived, they all transformed into humans and cupped their fists at Lin Ling. Ah! Everyone's jaws dropped to the sea in disbelief. These ferocious sea dragon demons actually called the blue-robed man sir. This was fucking unbelievable. It's time to go home. Lin Ling ignored the dumbfounded Tuoluo Men and said to the sea dragon demons in a friendly manner. In the past 4,000 years, he didn't pay attention to worldly affairs. The only people he interacted with were the sea dragon demons and the others. Lin Ling also used the sea dragon demons and their adventures to familiarize himself with the country of eternity. "We can finally go home." Hearing this, all the sea dragon demons became excited. Then, they looked at Tuoluo Men and the others with disdain. Their eyes seemed to be saying, "Did you see that? I'm more familiar with sir. You guys are nothing. So arrogant. I'm so angry. This group of boorish demons can actually be appreciated by sir. They are so lucky." That's right. Seeing this, Tuoluo Men and the others were secretly jealous. "This is the place." Lin Ling continued to walk forward. Finally, he stopped and looked at the sky in front of him calmly. There, it was blue with white clouds floating. However, Lin Ling knew that if he opened the god's inheritance treasure here, it would be easier to travel to the void of Jojo. Now, Lin Ling had 2 more chances to open the god's inheritance treasure. Of course, with Lin Ling's current foundation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to break through again. Therefore, he had a total of 3 chances. Here. There's nothing here. That's right. I can't even detect the slightest fluctuation of the void. Everyone was suspicious. They looked around and used powerful methods to spy on everything, but to no avail. "Shut up, all of you." Seeing the people chattering, an elder among the sea dragon demons shouted angrily, "If you disturb sir, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson." "Fuck, so arrogant. But I'll endure it." The experts gritted their teeth but didn't dare to speak carelessly. However, they were still suspicious of Lin Ling's ability to open the way out. Especially those who joined later, they were even more suspicious. At this moment, Lin Ling was already opening the god's inheritance treasure. Moreover, he opened 2 at once. Crack, crack, crack. 2 cracks appeared in the blue sky. Following this, a large number of god stones and treasures fell from the sky. They were the treasures of the 8th layer martial gods and 9th layer martial gods. There were many treasures, but Lin Ling did not think much of them. He put them away after a quick glance. Suddenly, an old bamboo scroll caught Lin Ling's attention. He reached out with his right hand and the bamboo scroll appeared in his hand. There were 2 ancient words written on it, "Most Supreme Tao." He opened the bamboo scroll and immediately saw that it was a Taoist record of countless godly weapons and pills. Interesting. Chapter 42-27. Next, Lin Ling took out a large number of God's fragments. With a wave of his right hand, those gods' fragments were refined and easily absorbed by Lin Ling. Wow, he opened the void. This senior really has some tricks up his sleeve. Wow. But how are we going to enter such a small space? Wow. Seeing Lin Ling's magic, people couldn't help but be excited. The old man called Old Hai was crying at this moment. Soybean-sized tears kept dripping down and smashing into the sea. Back then, he felt that Lin Ling had the ability to take them away, so he had been waiting for 4,000 years. And now, he didn't wait for the wrong person. Open. Wow. At this moment, after Lin Ling refined the god's fragments, he immediately opened the shrinking void crack by force. Back then, he didn't have to tear the crack open because his soul power poured in. But now, he wanted to enter the crack himself, so he had to open it domineeringly. Rumble. Under Lin Ling's action, the kingdom of eternity shook, and the sea soared into the sky. Domineering. Wow. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The experts who had previously doubted Lin Ling were now more convinced. The void crack was constantly being torn open, but it was also blocked by a powerful law. Talent fusion, first transformation. Wow. Lin Ling unleashed his full strength and fought against the laws of Eternal Kingdom with overwhelming force. Boom. At this moment, one of the cracks shattered, turning into a glass-like light that disappeared in the sky. Now, only one was left. Lin Ling also focused all his attention on that crack. He knew that the crack collapsed because it was suppressed by the law of the Kingdom of Eternity. Talent fusion, second transformation. Wow. Lin Ling's strength increased again. The dragon god's bloodline and other talents disappeared, and in their place, Lin Ling turned into a god. His body bloomed with green light, like a mighty Vajra, and around his body, thunder and fire roared crazily. Retreat! Retreat! As soon as this terrifying power appeared, everyone retreated. They were so shocked that they were speechless. In their eyes, the blue-robed man had transformed into an ancient giant, so terrifying. Crackle! Lin Ling's hands continued to tear the void apart. Now, it was big enough for one person to enter. Senior! Seeing this, everyone roared and knelt down in the air, extremely grateful. Senior, as expected of a deity. Old Hai was crying and shouting at the same time. Only now did he realize how terrifying Lin Ling's strength was. That was especially true of the Buddha Roof Gate and the others. They also knew that if the blue-robed man wanted to attack, even the entire country of eternity wouldn't be enough to kill him. Previously, they didn't sneak attack Lin Ling. That was a wise move. Exalted One's power has increased greatly, Your Excellency. This power is most likely the power of 500,000 worlds, and the power of 1,000 streams of gods. What a terrifying divine embryo. Although there's no divine light, it's still stronger than most divine embryos. All of the dragon demons were also very excited. This was the first time they had seen Lin Ling unleash his full power. Sire, if you want to leave, take my sword. However, just as the crack grew bigger and bigger, a person suddenly walked out of the void passage. This person wore a long green robe and carried a treasured sword on his back. His long hair was tied behind his head, and he had an ancient air about him. He was very mysterious. Who are you? Lin Ling's voice was low and deep, like the roar of a Vajra. This humble one is Master Pure Yang. My fellow Taoists call me Master Pure Yang. The world calls me Immortal Lu, Immortal of Wine, Immortal of Poetry, and Immortal of Sword. The green-robed man smiled. Of course, it doesn't matter who I am. I've been ordered to stop you from leaving. Take my sword, and you can leave. Master Pure Yang, Lu Dongbin. Lin Ling's eyes flashed with shock, and then he spoke, emphasizing each word. Even as he spoke, the green-robed man was even more shocked. You know me? He asked incredulously. Yes. I've heard of you. Yes. Lin Ling nodded, but inwardly he smiled wryly. He had been curious about who this person was, but after hearing Master Pure Yang's name, he finally remembered. When he was young, he had read about the 8 immortals, including Lu Dongbin, the immortal of sword. This person was also called Master Pure Yang. He was a mythical figure, but also a deity from before the era of gods. Interesting. It seems that your origins are even more mysterious than we thought. Then, do you dare take my sword? The green-robed man smiled. Come. Lin Ling was even more certain that his appearance in the Eternal Kingdom was intentional. It seemed to be a test. My sword is called the Pure Yang Sword, and it contains 2,000 strands of divine power. I also have a divine embryo, so be careful. Clang. The crisp sound of the sword rang out, and then a wave of pure yang energy poured out. It was incomparably powerful, and before the sword was even drawn, the sea was cut into pieces like tofu, floating in the air. What a terrifying sword! Everyone's expressions changed. They now knew that there was always someone better than them. They had thought that their strength had reached the limit by cultivating here, but now they knew that there were too many people in the void who were stronger than them. Pure Yang Sword. At this moment, the green-robed man slashed out. Time, space, and even the void were cut open. Through the slash, people could see the void of the 9 states, as well as the underworld, hell, and other places. Moreover, this sword was no longer as simple as simply slicing open the void. Instead, it was as if it had cut open the entire universe. Everyone, leave immediately. Following this, everyone panicked and madly retreated because that sword strike could take all of their lives. My lord! The dragon demons also sensed the terror of this sword, and they all roared. 2,000 strands of divine power, just this pure yang energy alone was not something an ordinary person could resist. Talent fusion, 3rd transformation. But at this moment, Lin Ling spoke coldly, and his ferocious soul force surged out. He controlled the 7 divine embryos, which were originally uncoordinated, and crazily fused them together. If it was before, Lin Ling would not be able to do this, but now, Lin Ling's soul force had increased greatly, and he could reach the 3rd transformation. And this was Lin Ling's strongest trump card. His physical strength had reached 800,000 world energy. His divine power had reached 1,500 strands. His world essence was the fusion of his 7 dantians. This was the result of Lin Ling's 4,000 years of bitter cultivation. Sword, come! With an angry roar, the tyrannical song sword appeared in Lin Ling's hand, and he looked forward and slashed out fiercely. Now that his 7 dantians had fused, he no longer had the appearance of a monster. Instead, he maintained the appearance of his original body. The only difference was that his body was as hot as fire, and it was constantly emitting dense energy. It was a magnificent sight. The reason for this was that Lin Ling had not completely controlled the 3rd transformation. There was a time limit, and unless Lin Ling's soul force reached a higher limit, he could smoothly control it. Chapter 42-28. Boom! 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 The 2 swords collided and the skies of the Kingdom of Eternity cracked open. The seawater that was floating in the sky was sucked in by the cracks as if a great calamity had arrived. Clang! Following that, the 2 figures approached from afar and collided violently. Chi! 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 The 2 swords clashed together. This formed an unstoppable force that blasted out in all directions. The dragon demon and the others in the distance were blown to the ends of the earth. Lin Ling, you're amazing. You gather fire, thunder, Buddha, dragon, and ghost into one body. Among the experts I've seen, you're the one with the most chaotic aura, but you're the one with the best control. The green-robed man's long hair fluttered in the wind. He held his sword against Lin Ling's tyrannical song sword and smiled faintly. "You're also the strongest person with the power of gods I've seen. The gods of the ancient era of gods are indeed terrifying." Lin Ling also held his sword as he stared at the man in front of him. "Alright, you win." At this moment, the green-robed man retracted his sword. Lin Ling erupted with all his strength. He couldn't control his strength and his sword slashed at the green-robed man. However, the man's body immediately surged with pure yang energy and easily blocked Lin Ling's sword. This also made Lin Ling realize that the green-robed man's previous sword strike hadn't been at full strength. "Aren't you surprised?" "In fact, it's normal because I've experienced the investiture of the gods, the ancient era and the deity era. My cultivation time has surpassed yours by millions of times. Moreover, there were experts from the desolate era and the primordial era before me. Therefore, you're now like this. So, don't be complacent with your strength." The green-robed man smiled as he turned around and gradually disappeared into the void passage. Lin Ling looked deeply at this person. He was shocked. Strong, very strong. He estimated that this person was an expert from the ancient era or perhaps an expert from the investiture of God's era. However, against such an expert, Lin Ling would need to use all his strength. What if it was the ancient era or the primordial era? Moreover, he was even more certain that the great gods of the ancient era were in a space, resisting the will of the world with all their strength. Then, Lin Ling laughed. He stared at the expanding void passage and laughed excitedly. Because he could go home. "Everyone, come on." After that, Lin Ling returned to his original form and looked into the distance with an excited smile. The entire Eternal Kingdom seemed to have gone through a catastrophe. Cracks were spreading in the distant sky like an eggshell that had been shattered. In the sky, a large number of figures flew over. When they saw Lin Ling in front of the void passage, they all burst into tears. Then, they kowtowed 3 times to the blue-robed man in the sky. Because they knew that this mysterious blue-robed man had fulfilled their wish of 100,000 years. Hee hee. Lin Ling, who had always been cold and indifferent, now revealed a brilliant smile. Then, he took a big step forward and set foot on the road home. Everyone followed along excitedly. Only after entering did they realize that the void tunnel was very long, and the scenery around them was constantly changing. "This is the time void tunnel." Lin Ling stared ahead and explained. He did not stop walking. Instead, he walked faster and faster until he came to a constantly changing void. Then, he slashed with his sword. This slash also hit the point of time. After it was slashed open, a void tunnel was revealed. Inside was the closest point of time to the Jojo void. Because Lin Ling did not want to return to the Jojo void thousands of years later. By then, his family and friends would have been reduced to piles of yellow bones. At this moment, in the eastern border of the void, a large number of martial artists flew over. Their auras were powerful, and every move they made caused the void to tremble. Moreover, they looked extremely domineering. "Get lost!" The martial artists who were blocking the way shouted angrily. This caused the martial artists to tremble and immediately make way. "How dare you block the Duan family's path? Are you courting death?" The leader snorted coldly. Based on his strength, he was actually an expert at the peak of the martial god realm. Moreover, he had an acquired divine fetus. In the current Jojo void, experts were as common as clouds. It was no longer rare to see a divine fetus. This was also a change that occurred 150 years after the Jojo god's investiture. Boom! However, at this moment, there was a loud boom. Then, a dazzling sword light appeared in the void and cut through the void. Next, the void was forcefully opened, and a blue-robed figure walked out with a smile. The sword light that had rushed out of the void had directly slain that tyrannical expert. This also caused the martial artists who were passing by in the distance to be dumbfounded. Forcefully opening the void, they said in shock. Looking at the void tunnel again, more and more people were walking out. Each of them was extremely powerful. However, when they walked out, they all cried. Then, they let out emotional roars. Some of them knelt down in the void, some wiped their tears, and some even kissed the void. Father, Mother, I'm back. Master, I, Lu Er, am finally home. Ruhua, Ruhua, my good wife, your husband is home, home. Those voices had undoubtedly frightened the passers-by. This group of people, were they crazy? You killed Duan Xiu, you're courting death. While the group of people was agitated, one of the experts let out an angry roar. He was naturally the group of experts from the Duan family. They never expected that on their way back from a realm in the eastern border to collect a precious treasure, one of them would die for no reason. Moreover, he was killed by mistake. Not only that, but the person who killed them by mistake did not apologize. Instead, he was crying, cursing, and calling them father. Was he crazy? Without a doubt, that person's cursing also interrupted the nostalgia and excitement of the crowd. Among them, Lin Ling did not get to be happy for long before he was also interrupted by that annoying voice. This made his mood inexplicably sour. Because after being trapped for 4,000 years and finally coming out with great difficulty, he was interrupted by others. No one would be happy if they were in his shoes. Duan Xiu, where did this dog come from? Lin Ling looked at the group of people and said calmly. Duan Xiu is from the Duan family, the strongest family in the world. You're dead, you're dead. How dare you kill someone from the Duan family? Seeing Lin Ling's cold gaze, the person who shouted felt a little guilty. If not for the golden name of the Duan family supporting him, he would have run away with his tail between his legs. The people around him were the same. They were not as domineering as before. After all, they saw that this group of people seemed to be very powerful. Duan family, I didn't expect that the first person I met after 4,000 years would be from the Duan family. Very well, to show my courtesy, I'll send you on your way. Chapter 42-29. During the whole process, Lin Ling didn't even move his eyebrows. Looking at the Duan family's experts, who had been insufferably arrogant before, being killed in one move, everyone shuddered. They felt that it was incomparably unreal. Looking at the Duan family's experts again, only the one who had shouted earlier was left. At this moment, he was so scared that he didn't even dare to move. Between his legs, there was a foul smell. He was so scared that he actually wet his pants. Obviously, he didn't expect that the other party was so powerful that they were all wiped out in one move. How long has it been since the investiture of the gods? Lin Ling looked at that person indifferently and said. Yes, yes, yes. 150 years. That person lowered his head and didn't dare to look at Lin Ling. Fortunately, it hasn't been that long. Lin Ling nodded and then said to that person, you can go now. Go back and tell the Duan lineage martial god that I still remember the battle in the divine world. I hope the Duan lineage martial god has time to fight again. Okay, okay, okay. That person didn't dare to disagree. Even if Lin Ling told him to eat shit, he would probably run to eat it. He quickly turned and left. However, he suddenly thought of something and immediately asked nervously, Senior, may I know who you are? Lin Ling. Lin Ling also turned around and left, leaving behind that person who was confused. Lin Ling. Who is that? On the contrary, some of the onlookers in the distance blinked their eyes and suddenly trembled. They looked at Lin Ling's back in disbelief and said, the legendary leader of the God Slayer Alliance, Lin Ling. As soon as these words were spoken, the void became inexplicably silent. Regarding Lin Ling's name, there was no one in the final world who didn't know about him. This was because this person had created countless miracles. He was once a student of the 36 academies. However, he came out of nowhere, entered the Shen Second Hall, and became a member of the Shen Third Hall. He even defeated the experts of the 36 academies and the Shen Third Hall. He was an invincible existence. However, just when everyone had high hopes for him, the investiture god of the 9 prefectures had suddenly fallen. This result was very shocking. After all, during the investiture of the gods, everyone's strength had increased greatly. However, Lin Ling was the opposite. Not only did his strength not increase, but he had also fallen. This was simply too shocking. Now, this legendary figure who had been deemed dead by others had actually returned. Lin Ling, you're back. The only person from the Duan family was so scared that he roared and ran into the distance. This is fake, right? It has been 150 years since the investiture of the gods in the 9 regions. Lin Ling is actually still alive, but why hasn't there been any news about him in the past 150 years? I don't know if it's true or not, but I reckon that if it's true, it won't take long for Lin Ling's name to spread in the void of the 9 continents again. A legendary god is indeed powerful. The people in the void were still discussing spiritedly. The reason why people like them remembered Lin Ling was because of the God Slayer Alliance. The current God Slayer Alliance was a colossus whose name shook the 9 continents. At this moment, in the void, a large number of experts were walking into the distance. Lin Ling was dressed in a long robe and was the leader of the group. He was walking slowly with a calm aura. However, there was a smile on his face. He was obviously very excited. With a sweep of his gaze, his powerful soul power seemed to envelop half of the void. Bits and pieces of the past flowed into his mind. North, that was the North Territory, where the sacred rainforest was located. That was Lin Ling's hometown. The North, South, East, West, and West territories. Clearly, Lin Ling's footprints were all left here. Then, Qingzhou. This was the first springboard for Lin Ling to step into the martial god realm. The 7 great forbidden lands of the 9 continents. There were also traces of Lin Ling's past there. Everything was too much, too much. In these 4,000 years of cultivation, Lin Ling would occasionally recall the past. However, after returning personally, he realized how precious those memories were. It was no wonder that the people of the Eternal Kingdom wanted to return. It was a feeling of homesickness. Senior, we are going home. The experts behind him suddenly stopped and restrained their urge to rush home. Instead, they cupped their fists and said to Lin Ling, "All right, you can all go back." Lin Ling nodded. These experts were once people of the 9 continents. They came from the 9 continents and the 10,000 realms. They had accidentally wandered into the One World Mountain and had been brought to the Eternal Kingdom. Now that they had returned, they naturally wanted to go back and take a look. "Benefactor, may I know your name? We will repay you in the future." Tualuo men also bowed to Lin Ling and said, "Lin Ling." Lin Ling didn't hide anything and said with a smile, "Benefactor Lin Ling." Upon hearing this, Tualuo men and the others bowed to Lin Ling. Old Hai said, "I wonder how we can find Benefactor Lin Ling. After going to the final world, I believe that there won't be many people who don't know me. Therefore, if you casually mention my name, there should be people who know where I live." Lin Ling said. Benefactor must be a famous person in the 9 continents void. Nonsense, how could he not be a famous person when he is so powerful? Benefactor, we will take our leave first. We will definitely pay you a visit in the future. After saying goodbye, they immediately scattered and left. Of course, because they were all from the Eternal Kingdom, most of them left voice transmission talismans so that they could meet and help each other in the future. Lin Ling watched them leave and smiled. Then, he led the group of old demons forward again. The overall strength of these experts from the Eternal Kingdom was very strong. If they were allowed to join the God Slayer Alliance, the God Slayer Alliance would undoubtedly become stronger. Moreover, Lin Ling also thought of the tens of thousands of experts who had been assimilated by the flame of the human king in the spiritual light city. Although these experts weren't from the God Slayer Alliance, as long as Lin Ling called for them, they would immediately bow down to him. Unless their divine fetus surpassed Lin Ling's flame of the human king, only then would they be able to escape from his control. However, Lin Ling's flame of the human king was now a fifth stage innate divine fetus. It was undoubtedly very difficult to surpass it. We are about to reach the final world. Lin Ling continued forward. In the direction of his gaze, a huge city gate appeared in the void. Behind the city gate was an ancient and vast continent. That was naturally the final world. As for the huge city gate, it was Heaven Pass City. Back then, Lin Ling had escaped from this place and returned with his head held high. Now, he had returned from this border gate. However, compared to his previous exaltation, Lin Ling's current state of mind was incomparably calm and unperturbed. 4,000 years of bitter cultivation had left his heart without any ripples. The only thing he missed was his wife, son, grandfather, and mother. Leading the group of dragon demons, Lin Ling strode toward the city gate. With a glance, he immediately discovered that compared to back then, the overall strength of the current cultivators had increased by a lot. Back then, divine fetus were hard to find. Now, divine embryos were running around everywhere like dogs. Chapter 42:30. Everyone, do you have a jade pass? Yes. Just as Lin Ling approached, a cold shout was heard. The guards at the city gate blocked Lin Ling's path. Seeing this, the dragon demons snorted and released a powerful aura. They were now experts at the peak of the martial god realm and possessed the innate dragon god's bloodline. It could be said that after so many years of tempering, they were no longer dragon demons but real dragons. Such a large group would have been enough to shake Heaven Pass City in the past. After all, this was a group of experts comparable to the leaders of the 9 states' 10 evils. However, after the 9 states' investiture of the gods and the return of the gods, the 9 states' void was no longer the same as before. There were many experts. Therefore, even though the dragon demons and the others had terrifying auras, the group of guards were only surprised and not afraid. At this moment, Lin Ling waved his hand and stopped the dragon demon's anger. He said calmly, "My name is Lin Ling, a trial taker of the 4 great gods." Now, his goal was to go home and have a look. Therefore, he did not intend to cause any trouble. Lin Ling. The guards frowned. Then, a thick ancient book appeared in their hands and they began to read it. Next, they looked up and one of them said with a frown, "There's no such person as Lin Ling." Lin Ling had disappeared for 150 years. 100 years ago, there was no news of Lin Ling among the 4 great gods. It was as if Lin Ling had fallen. 100 years later, Lin Ling's soul returned. Although it shocked Lei Gong, he did not see Lin Ling. Therefore, the news of his death did not change. This also meant that Lin Ling was not qualified to enter the city. In fact, if a famous figure like Lin Ling had not fallen, no one would have dared to stop him from entering the city. Unfortunately, he had disappeared for 150 years. This period of time was neither short nor long. Everything remained the same, but the people had changed. Lin Ling, right? It doesn't matter if you are real or fake, alive or dead, but your name is not in the records of the current clearance. This means that you are not qualified to enter the final world. The leader of the guards coldly said, "Of course, if you know someone in the final world, they can protect you. If not, then scram." This person obviously knew the name Lin Ling, but he didn't believe that Lin Ling was still alive. Moreover, even if he was still alive, with Lin Ling's strength, he couldn't be arrogant. "You're telling me to get lost?" Hearing this, Lin Ling finally smiled. It was a cold smile. I gave you face, but you don't want it. I've already been very nice to you. I've given you a chance to call out the people of the final world and guarantee your entry. If it were anyone else, I would have already chased them away. The guard captain looked at Lin Ling fearlessly. He was at the advanced stage of the martial god realm and possessed an acquired divine embryo. His strength was also formidable. Incomparable. Of course, this was what he thought. Call out the people of the final world. Lin Ling laughed again. He hadn't returned home for 150 years. Treasures such as voice transmission jade talismans had long turned into ashes in the time passage. Unless Lin Ling used his soul force to inform the people of Snow City. However, Lin Ling had just returned and he couldn't even return home. Moreover, he had to inform others to welcome him. This was obviously a joke. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to consider. If you don't give way, then I'll have to force my way in. Although Lin Ling didn't want to waste time and entered the city according to the rules, Heaven Pass City had given him an even more time-consuming path. Therefore, he chose the simplest way. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, the guards burst into laughter. The experts passing by the city gate were also laughing non-stop. Force his way into Heaven Pass City. Did this person think that he was a big shot? Or did he think that his strength was comparable to the city lord and he wasn't afraid of the gods? 3. Ignoring everyone's sneers, Lin Ling calmly counted. After he finished, he finally nodded gently. Then, he passed by the guards and headed for the city gate. This action undoubtedly shocked everyone. That man really dared to break in. Stay here. Seeing this, the guard also roared angrily. However, before he could attack Lin Ling, the dragon god roared in front of him. This also made everyone turn their heads and see countless dragon gods rushing over in an overwhelming manner. These dragons each had their own characteristics and their colors were all different. It was as if the dragon race had arrived. Rumble. The dragons charged forward, and no one could stop them. Even the city gate collapsed. And this was obviously a forceful attack. Kill, kill, kill him. The guards were either dead or injured. Some sat on the ground, their eyes red as they let out ferocious cries. However, just as he finished speaking, his head was swallowed by a dragon. How terrifying. The people also saw the dragons wreaking havoc and were all trembling in fear. Those who didn't know the situation were even more confused because the dragon race had arrived. Who are you? How dare you break into Heaven Pass City? On the streets of the city, more experts came to inquire. They looked at the scene near the city gate from afar and were all shocked. Because in all these years, it wasn't that no one had dared to break into Heaven Pass City. However, the breaking in now was obviously different. It was breaking through the city gate. If gods and Buddhas blocked them, they would destroy Buddhas. You're courting death. Therefore, those powerhouses were all furious. They stared at the street and saw a blue-robed young man. At this moment, he was walking slowly with his hands behind his back. Behind him were countless dragon gods. This also let them know that the blue-robed young man was the main culprit. However, to summon so many dragons at once, could it be the dragon king of the dragon race? Just as they rushed over, the dragon gods in the distance also roared, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. It was terrifying. Rumble. The first batch of guards were all dead. Bang bang bang. The second batch of guards, 90% of them were dead. The third batch. The fourth batch. Blood spewed and splattered on the ground. All the guards of Heaven Pass City had arrived, but they couldn't stop the terrifying dragon gods at all and were unilaterally slaughtered. Who is this person? He's too arrogant. Some of the warriors in Heaven Pass City were also attracted by the commotion. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. I think I heard that it's Lin Ling. Someone said solemnly. Lin Ling, the Lin Ling who died 150 years ago. Heavens, this must be fake. I don't know. However, if this person isn't Lin Ling, then this person has committed a heinous crime. Bullshit, even if he really is Lin Ling, isn't he too arrogant? Does he think the people of Heaven Pass City are ants? Seeing the dragon god sweep through everything, many people were shocked and angry. Lin Ling. On the street, a large group of people was walking slowly. When they heard Lin Ling's name, their hearts trembled inexplicably. 100 years ago, there were rumors that Lin Ling wasn't dead. After waiting for 50 years, Lin Ling has finally appeared. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.